Chapter 1234 Wisdom Demon Crown. To Earth. Zhou also smiled secretly. This War Master God was also straightforward. He had at least politely addressed him as Your Excellency before obtaining the Master God Tier Divine Artifact. As soon as he obtained the Master God Tier Divine Artifact, he didn't even address him as Your Excellency and directly called him by his name. As expected of the most belligerent Master God Tier among the 10 Master Gods. Zero was very quiet. It did not agree or deny Terrence's request. Zhou took out 3 more Master God Tier Divine Artifacts. Your Excellency Terrence, this is the Master God Tier Elementary Grade Divine Artifact, Void Arrow that you want to strengthen your Divine Sense attack ability. The other 2 Master God Tier Divine Artifacts are the Master God Tier Divine Artifact, Void Nether Ring and the Master God Tier Divine Artifact, Heavenly God's Wings. The War Master God's eyes lit up as he looked at the 3 Master God Tier Divine Artifacts. After receiving them from Zhou, he immediately examined them carefully. After a while, he revealed a satisfied smile at Zhou. I'm very satisfied with these 4 true God Tier Divine Artifacts. As expected of the Lord chosen by my mythical tier, the only Lord Talent. You're such a surprise. Terrence said in satisfaction. He did not expect that he would be able to exchange for 4 Master God Tier Divine Artifacts with just 1 attack. This was much more beneficial than he starting a cross-border war. For a moment, he even wanted to follow Zhou and use some legitimate methods to find an opportunity to obtain more Master God Tier Divine Artifacts from him. However, after some thought, he gave up on this tempting idea. The 10 Master God Tiers had special statuses. If not for Zhou's mythical tier unique Lord Talent, logically speaking, they wouldn't have appeared here to help Zhou defeat the enemy. Apart from the current situation of an enemy invasion, it was impossible for they to help Zhou in any other situation, let alone follow him and help he at any time. Even if they were Master God Tiers, they couldn't do it even if they wanted to, the Supreme Will would not allow it. On the other side, Zhou also gave the Wisdom Master God and the Machina Master God their respective Master God Tier Divine Artifacts. Zhou also gave the Wisdom Master God and the Machina Master God their respective Master God Tier Divine Artifacts. Like the War Master God, the 2 of them only had 1 Master God Tier Divine Artifact. The 5 Master God Tier Divine Artifacts that Zhou had given them had indeed overturned their understanding. Thank you. Zero said. This is what Your Excellency deserves. Zhou smiled. Zero said nothing. If that's the case, we won't stay any longer. I hope that you can advance your Lord faction to a Divine Kingdom Lord faction as soon as possible. Only then will you be truly bound to us. The War Master God said meaningfully. Zhou was stunned. He sensed that there was a hidden meaning in the other party's words. But just as he was about to ask more, the War Master God stopped him with a look. You'll know when it's time to know. The War Master God smiled. Following that, he didn't say anything else. He summoned his golden divine chariot again and drove it into the depths of the cosmos. The Wisdom Master God and Machina Master God bade farewell to Zhou and left in their own ways. After the 2 Master Gods left, the smile on Zhou's face gradually faded. He looked calmly in the direction where the Wisdom Master God had left. After some thought, his divine body instantly disappeared from the spot. In the High Continent, Blazing Sun Empire, Imperial Capital, Shrine World. On an empty golden throne. Swoosh! A figure appeared on the throne. It was Zhou. He flipped his right hand, and Bodhi Supreme appeared in his hand. Very cautious. The Bodhi Supreme teased as soon as it appeared. The Wisdom Master God didn't notice you, right? Zhou asked. Don't worry, Bodhi Supreme said confidently. Even though the Wisdom Master God is indeed very good at sensing this aspect, under my cover, he will definitely not discover the wisdom demon crown I hid. Zhou Zhou nodded. Wisdom demon crown. This was a special treasure that he had obtained from Ji Yun. Later, Bodhi Supreme said that a portion of Tot Birth's crazy soul was imprisoned in the wisdom demon crown, and this portion of his crazy soul was related to a secret of Tot Birth. In order to prevent himself from being noticed by the wisdom master god because of this wisdom demon crown, Zhou Zhou had handed he over to Bodhi Supreme for safekeeping, and it had continued until now. That's good. Zhou Zhou nodded and asked curiously, what's the secret of Tot Birth's crazy soul in the wisdom demon crown? When it's time for you to know, you'll naturally know. Bodhi Supreme said. Zhou Zhou frowned. This again? He thought for a while and performed not ask further. He retracted the Bodhi Supreme and then teleported away from the throne. 12,000 light-years away from the original location of Cerulean Planet. Zhou Fight had just teleported the entire solar system here. This is it. This will be our new base from now on. Immediate deployment. We must build a planet's defense system that can withstand Master God Tier's offensive in the shortest time possible. He said to Bai Yun and the others. Yes, Your Majesty. Bai Yun uttered respectfully. Zhou Fight nodded. At this moment, a figure transported in front of Zhou Fight. It was Zhou Zhou. Greetings, Your Majesty. Bai Yun hurriedly said respectfully when she saw the main body head over. Zhou Zhou nodded and said, next, this emperor will change our identities. Inform the soldiers under you to be prepared. In the future, when you go out to fight, don't reveal that we are the Blazing Sun Empire's army. Act with your new identities. Yes, Your Majesty. Bai Yun nodded and immediately went to do this. Zhou Zhou's expression was solemn as he considered to himself, I want to use the second identity created by the Lord Talent, Twin Body. As soon as he finished speaking, a text notification appeared. Lord Talent notification, you have activated the identity of the Immortal Lord, Lord of Beginner Empire. Zhou Zhou gazed at his clothes. The Emperor Dragon robe he was wearing was currently emitting a faint black and white light. After a while, the light dissipated, and he saw a green bamboo-patterned Emperor robe appear on his body. Then, he gazed at the Regal Sage Dao sword at his waist. His Regal Sage Dao sword had also turned into a green Emperor sword. This green Emperor sword emitted a dense aura of the law of wood. It performed not look fake at all. However, Zhou Zhou knew that his nomological aura of wood was only a disguise. He was actually completely a regal nomological existence. If I wasn't in my original form and saw my current appearance, I would definitely think that I'm not the Lord of the Blazing Sun but some other human lord. Even a Master God Tier wouldn't be able to tell that my true form is the Lord of the Blazing Sun under my disguise. This Twin Lord Talent is really terrifying when it comes to changing one's perception. Zhou Zhou sighed. Then, his eyes lit up as he muttered to himself in anticipation, with the Twin Body Talent, Cerulean Planet shouldn't be in danger for the time being. Moreover, the Cerulean Planet is guarded by Zhou Fight and Zhou Marshall's clones. Time to go back to Earth and take a look. Thinking of this, he no longer hesitated. He flew to Cerulean Planet and went to Earth through the Gate of Summoning. Chapter 1235, Return to Earth. Earth, in outer space. Zhou Zhou floated there and looked at the blue planet with a complicated expression. It was as if the surrounding satellites did not see Zhou Zhou at all. There was no reaction at all. Naturally, the countries on Earth did not discover this returnee who had just returned from another world. After a long time. Earth, I'm back. Zhou Zhou said as he looked at the planet he was most familiar with. Unfortunately, I didn't expect that when I returned, things would have changed. He looked at Earth. Unlike before he left, this place was already filled with traces of time. Many of the things that he was once familiar with were no longer on Earth. Or rather, they had already been updated. The current technological level on Earth was much higher than before he reincarnated on Cerulean planet. Is it already 2048 on Earth? He muttered to himself. After he reincarnated to Cerulean planet, 25 years passed. These 25 years did not affect Earth because he was a transmigrator. Instead, it allowed Earth to develop naturally for 25 years. 25 years was enough to change a lot of things, for example, technology, the people he loved, and the people who loved him. At the thought of this, Zhou took a step forward and disappeared into outer space. The next second, he appeared on the street of an ordinary town on Earth. The crowded streets that once represented simplicity, commonness, and hustle and bustle had added many new technologies, brands, shops, and tall buildings, but the familiar feeling had not changed. Sensing this familiar feeling, Zhou felt inexplicably relieved. A smile subconsciously appeared on his face. Following that, he strode towards his grandparents' residence. The pedestrians passing by did not seem to notice the existence that was completely different from them. They continued to walk on their own path, chatting and laughing with the people beside them. He did not see this wanderer who was in a hurry to go home at all. In a new residential area, Zhou stood at the entrance of the neighborhood and looked at the newly built unfamiliar neighborhood. He raised his eyebrows slightly and calculated with his mind. The result made him heave a sigh of relief. His grandparents were still alive, but because of the development of the new district, they had moved to another place after receiving the demolition money. Zhou glanced at the newly built residential area before turning around and walking towards another residential area. The New Hope Community. Zhou looked at the somewhat old neighborhood and entered. Then, according to his divination results, he walked to the second floor of Building 3 of Block 6 and quickly arrived at the door of the room. The common people's regal, who had always remained calm even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him and could suppress all the lord of all races in the world and even exterminate them, suddenly felt nervous as he stood in front of his house. It was ridiculous. However, this was what it meant to be close to home. Zhou took a deep breath and scanned the room with his spiritual will. Then, he saw his grandparents sleeping in the room. He was taken aback. Then, he pondered for a few seconds and walked through the door into the house. Then, he came to his grandparents' room and looked at the old couple. 20 years have passed and the two elders looked even older, and there were more age spots on their faces. Moreover, one could see the weakness, fatigue, and illness on their faces. However, the two elders were already lucky enough. 20 years had passed, and the two elders were already in their 90s. In any country, in any historical period, or even in this era where technology had greatly improved, he could be called a senior. Still, you've suffered all your lives. Now is the time to enjoy life. You have to stay with me for the rest of my life. Zhou smiled. Following that, he flicked his finger and saw two wisps of vitality appear out of thin air. Then, they landed in the two elders' bodies and began to nourish them silently. The fatigue and morbidity on the faces of the two elders, who were sleeping soundly, quietly dissipated. The redness on their faces unconsciously relaxed, and a smile naturally appeared on their faces. Zhou nodded to himself. The two auras of vitality that he had just released had an eternal characteristic. They would constantly release vitality, allowing the two elders to live forever. When in danger, these two vital energies would protect the two elders and send a message to him at the same time. This way, he would be at ease. As for strength or even becoming a god, it was not something that could be done in a short period of time. It could be done slowly. There's medical prosthesis in your bodies. Zhou suddenly realized this when he was using vitality to treat the two elders' bodies and could not help but shake his head. Even though medical prosthetics can treat illnesses, they're still external objects after all. They can't be harmonious with the body. There's no problem with this thing for a short period of time. It can even make the body free of illnesses. However, over time, it might cause more illnesses. Perhaps future technology in a few hundred years might solve this problem, but medical chrome is still not very good now. At the thought of this, Zhou activated the chaotic sacred power and deprived the two elders of their prostheses. Then, he used the vitality energy to restore the place where the two elders had been replaced by the prostheses. Zhou flew straight into the sky after doing all this and confirming that the two elders were fine. Through the mental divination, he divined the person who had taken care of the two elders over the years and blessed them with longevity and health. He divined the people who had bullied the two elders over the years and gave them the corresponding punishment, and then, he split out a portion of his divine consciousness and made it take on his appearance. From now on, you'll take care of my family on earth for me when I'm not around. When I come back, you can just return. Zhou said to his divine sense clone. The divine sense clone was different from the clone created by the doppelganger technique. The divine sense clone was completely a part of the main body. There was no difference between them at all. It was equivalent to a clone that the main body had sent out a thought. Zhou was naturally relieved to use it. I'm you, and you're me. They are our grandparents. The divine sense clone smiled. Zhou nodded. Then, the divine sense clone turned into a stream of light and flew back to the town to reunite with his grandparents. Zhou began to look up the information of his ex-girlfriend. He discovered that his former girlfriend on Earth had become a rich woman. However, for some reason, she was still single. She has become a little rich woman. This can be considered fulfilling her previous dream, right? Zhou could not help but laugh. Then, he looked at her, who was working hard in front of the computer, and his expression gradually turned gentle. It was hard for outsiders to imagine that the common people's regal who could kill master god spirits with a single strike could actually show such an expression now. Chapter 1236, Advancing to High-Tier Deity Level Intermediate Grade. After a long time. I'll see her sometime. Zhou thought. He naturally wouldn't give up on his little girlfriend on Earth. This was because he could sense that even after 20 years, her love and longing for him had become deeper and more restrained, unknown to outsiders. It was the same for him. Zhou silently flicked out a trace of vitality and fused it into her body. The girl who was working in front of RHE computer was stunned, and a surprised expression appeared on her face. Why is my body suddenly in such a good state? 11, I wasn't even this healthy when I was years old. Then, she looked at the sky and muttered to herself, are you protecting me? I'm not giving up. I am still living a good life when you are not yet. It's just that sometimes I miss you very much. At this moment, the phone beside her suddenly rang. She looked over. When she saw the caller ID, her body trembled as if she had been electrocuted. Then, she immediately took it. Hey! Zhou closed his eyes in the sky while on the phone. After a long time, he reluctantly ended the call. A long separation makes the heart grow fonder. I have to hold a grand wedding for her in the future. Zhou smiled. Then, he flew into the cosmos again and looked down at the azure planet. His expression calmed down. This emperor has already become a regal. It's time for the earth to be renewed. Let's have a revival of spiritual energy. Zhou flipped his right hand, and a complete true god-tier elementary grade divine spark appeared in his hand. This complete divine spark emitted a rich aura of the law of life. It was clearly a true god-tier divine spark of the law of life. With the true god-tier divine spark of the law of life as the core of Earth's spiritual energy recovery era, it should be able to cause a great evolution of life on Earth. Zhou said to himself with a smile. Then, he threw this divine spark into Earth and the core. Zhou Zhou felt that Earth's promotion energy index had begun to increase rapidly. Soon, it had reached the point where a superhuman could be born. Grandpa, Grandma, and my girlfriend should be the ones who are most compatible with this true God-tier divine spark with Rhe wisp of vitality I left for them. If I'm no wrong, the first batch of superhumans should be Grandpa, Grandma, and my girlfriend. Zhou Zhou thought. Then, he cast a law skill on Rhe entire Earth. This law skill was called the mind-calming spell. It was a true God-tier law skill. Its function was to calm the negative thoughts of life forms, such as killing, violence, fear, and so on. It also allowed life forms to enter a calm state as much as possible. Living beings who entered a calm state could maximize their potential and absorb the promotional energy in the air to become extraordinary as soon as possible. This way, not only could it minimize the killings caused by the recovery of spiritual energy, but it could also allow more extraordinary individuals to be born on Earth faster, allowing Earth to enter the extraordinary tier era. After doing all this, Zhou Zhou casually bestowed a gray stone tablet that reached the sky and landed on the Emperor Qin Mountain in Rh country. This throne tablet recorded a series of cultivation techniques from the Qi refinement realm, Black Iron tier, to the Ascension realm, Legendary tier. The cultivation techniques came from Rhe human Qi refinement civilization. Zhou Zhou had kept it so that the humans on Earth would have ready-made cultivation techniques to cultivate after entering the extraordinary tier stage. It would save them the trouble of only relying on their physique to absorb it naturally. As for cultivation techniques at the true immortal realm, low-level deity tier, or above, Zhou Zhou temporarily didn't bestow them. However, he had left an ascension teleportation array on this sky-penetrating stone steel. Once a human on Earth advanced to the Ascension realm, the sky-penetrating stone tablet would sense their existence and invite them to ascend to the Blazing Sun Empire on High Continent to become the worshipped God Spirit of the Blazing Sun Empire. Once such a genius cultivator really appeared and ascended to his side, Zhou Zhou would naturally not treat him badly. After doing all this, Zhou Zhou sat cross-legged in space and quietly looked at the blue planet below. Gradually, a terrifying God Spirit pressure arose from his body. Furthermore, the pressure of this God Spirit pressure continued to increase. Thankfully, Zhou Zhou had diverted a portion of his consciousness to forcefully restrain the naturally overflowing divine pressure around his divine body. Otherwise, once the natural divine pressure landed on Earth, it could instantly destroy it. A moment later, the God Spirit pressure on Zhou Zhou's body suddenly increased greatly. Mid-tier deity level advanced grade. He had actually broken through the bottleneck of the God Spirit and entered the level of a mid-tier deity level advanced grade after he had done a series of things to Earth. This did not stop. After Zhou Zhou had just advanced to Rhe level of a mid-tier deity level advanced grade, his divine pressure was still increasing. Another half an hour passed. Boom! High-tier deity level elementary grade. It was as if Zhou Zhou did not feel his advancement. He was still looking at his mother planet that he had missed for many years. What was shocking was that even though the God Spirit pressure on him had weakened a little, it was still steadily increasing. More than an hour later. Boom! The nine-colored divine light on Zhou Zhou's body exploded again. Countless laws were hidden within, forming a huge divine kingdom starry sky like stars. He had officially entered the high-tier deity level intermediate grade. At this moment, the aura of advancement on Zhou Zhou's body slowly weakened and disappeared. Finally, it completely returned to calm. At this moment, Zhou Zhou's divine spirit realm had officially stabilized at the high-tier deity level intermediate grade. Zhou Zhou came back to his senses after a while. He sensed his God spirit realm and revealed a smile. Then, he muttered to himself, "I didn't expect that returning to my hometown would become my obsession. Now that my obsession has been completely resolved, my nomoyogical comprehension is no longer flawed. It's precisely because of this that my divine spirit realm has soared greatly, directly rising from the mid-tier deity level intermediate grade to the high-tier deity level intermediate grade in one go. It has increased by a whole level. I'm only one high-tier deity level advance grade away from the true God-tier realm. Zhou pondered. When he reached the true God tier, he would not need to borrow the power of Rhe Moon Demon or the power Heavenly Emperor and should be able to directly raise his strength to the Master God tier level. In addition, there was the Moon Demon, the power Heavenly Emperor, and the Master God tier Divine Artifact. It was not impossible for the 10 Master God tiers to fight. Then, he took one last look at Earth before turning around and disappearing into the cosmos. In the galaxy where the Cerulean planet was located. Not long after Zhou returned, he received a report from Wu Tuesday, reporting to Your Majesty, the information on the surrounding starfields has been explored. This is all the information. Wu Tu said respectfully, and then he turned on the projection and let Zhou watch. Zhou looked at it. The star domain they were in was called the Heron Star Domain. The entire star domain was more than 20,000 light-years in diameter. Even though it was located in a remote place, it was rich in resources and had many inhabited planets. It could be considered a secondary fertile star domain. The one ruling this star domain was a true God-tier existence called the Heron Star Lord. Let's take down Heron Star Lord first. Zhou's simple words decided the other party's fate. Yes, Your Majesty. Wu Tu replied respectfully. Chapter 1237 Current Situation of the Lord of Cerulean Planet. Blood Moon Sun. Event-exclusive Divine Artifact, the Universe Star Map. Zhou looked at the layout of the Heron Star Domain and finally nodded in satisfaction. The new place of survival and expansion that he had chosen was really not bad, be it in terms of resources or other aspects. It was much better than the original location of the solar system. Tell the soldiers to prepare. After the initial defense is completed, prepare to go out and expand the territory of our mortal empire. Zhou said. He deliberately emphasized the words, mortal empire. Yes, Your Majesty. Wu Tu immediately understood and said respectfully. Zhou nodded and looked at the next report. Then, he realized that this information was about the current situation of the human lords on Cerulean Planet. Currently, there were more than 2.6 billion lords on the Cerulean Planet, and the lords who survived were basically all above the yellow-gold tier. Moreover, most of the lords were under the command of various Cerulean Planet Lord Alliances and Lord Kingdoms. There were very few lone lords who did not belong to any lord faction. Even if there was, after the unification of the race masters today, they basically no longer existed. All the lords of Cerulean Planet could be considered the subordinates of the Lord of the Blazing Sun. The only difference was whether it was enhanced by Zhou's lord talent. These few lords of Cerulean Planet who joined later were destined to not be able to enjoy the enhancement of his lord talent because they were not affiliated kingdoms or had not signed a master-servant territory contract. Zhou had no choice. Who asked them to arrive late? Since they liked to enjoy the freedom of a lone lord, they had to bear the benefits of not having the protection of a lord. The overlord of Cerulean Planet, who had been forcefully pulled over by him, was not qualified, nor could he enjoy the enhancement of his lord talent. Zhou did not care about such a small matter. Instead, his gaze landed on the total number of lords on Cerulean Planet. Are there only 2.6 billion lords left on the Cerulean Planet? Zhou sighed. He remembered that during the Novice Lord test, there were more than 8 billion lords on the Cerulean Planet. Unexpectedly, after a few activities, more than 5 billion lords of the Cerulean Planet had died. Only 2 billion were left. This must be the cruelty of the Lord of all races contest. Zhou sighed. However, he was not surprised by this number. He was a ruthless person who had wiped out an entire race after all. Compared to the extinction of some races, the Lord of Cerulean Planet was much better than the lords of other races because of him. If he had not traded a large number of goods in the marketplace to increase the strength of the lords on Cerulean Planet, the number of lords on Cerulean Planet would definitely be much fewer than today. He continued reading and accidentally saw the information sent by the Blood Moon Sun. According to the information, the Blood Moon Sun realized that after Yuzanda found out about Zhou Zhou's recent battle results, he finally realized the difference in strength between him and the common people's regal. He immediately calmed down. After calming down, Yuzanda finally decided to temporarily give up on the idea of revenge and return to the Titan Divine Domain to think about it at length. After the Blood Moon Sun discovered this matter, he naturally would not let this true god tier of the Titan gods off easily. His death back then was caused by the Titan god race. Even though Yuzanda was not the murderer, he had helped the murderer kill the Blood Moon Lord back then. It was impossible not to take revenge for such a blood feud. He had yet to recover his Master God tier realm, so he naturally could not kill the Master God of the Titan God race who had killed him. However, it wasn't a bad idea to collect some interest from this killer. Therefore, the Blood Moon Sun took advantage of the fact that Yuzanda had hurriedly returned to the Titan God race and Heartless was paying attention to his surroundings to suddenly assassinate him. The battle between the two began. In the end, the Blood Moon Sun relied on the advantage of being the first to kill Yuzanda. Coupled with his Master God tier combat experience and Master God tier will, he successfully killed Yuzanda. At this point, Yuzanda and his son had both died. In this report, the Blood Moon Sun asked if he should publicize that he had killed Yuzanda. If he did not publicize it, the Titan God race might very well blame this on Zhou Zhou. If it was made public, the Titan God race would at most blame this on him. They would not even implicate the Blood Moon clan behind him. The Blood Moon clan had already pledged allegiance to Zhou Zhou, and the Blood Moon Sun had left the Blood Moon clan before the Blood Moon clan pledged allegiance to Zhou Zhou after all. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that there was a high probability that the two had nothing to do with each other. There was also a high probability that the Titan God race would not send troops from thousands of miles away to deal with Zhou Zhou by force. After Zhou Zhou saw this information, he pondered for a few seconds and suddenly had a new idea. He immediately contacted the Blood Moon Sun and told him that he didn't have to do anything. The outside world could suspect him however they wanted. Even if he was really blamed for this, he wasn't afraid. As for the Blood Moon Sun, Zhou Zhou persuaded him to come to the Blazing Sun Empire and become the Submaster God tier. As long as he agreed to him, Zhou Zhou was willing to provide him with all the restorative items to restore his Master God tier powers. He could even give him a Master God tier divine artifact. After sending these messages, a smile appeared on Zhou Zhou's face. With the existence of the Master God tier divine artifact, Zhou Zhou did not believe that the other party could resist such temptation. If the other party really agreed to come to his Blazing Sun Empire and become a quasi-Master God tier revered elder, Zhou Zhou would use a large amount of resources to restore the other party to the strength of a Master God tier. Then, his Blazing Sun Empire would have a true Master God tier revered elder. This offering was much more stable than the War Master God. At that time, he would equip the other party with a full set of Master Divine artifacts. The Blood Moon Sun, who was a low-level Master God tier, should not be afraid at all even if he faced an advanced-grade Master God. Then his Blazing Sun Empire would truly be stable. He was not afraid of any threat for the time being. After Zhou Zhou finished reading the remaining information, he chatted with Wu Tu for a while before letting him leave. More than 3 hours later, under Zero's full-strength arrangements, a planet defense system that could withstand the attacks of a true god tier was officially completed. Next, he only needed to wait for the Eternal Mothership to descend and obtain the materials for the construction of the Master God tier planet's defense system. Then, he could upgrade the planet's defense system on Cerulean Planet from the true god tier to the Master God tier. At this moment, Zhou did not stop advancing at all. He immediately gathered the entire army and prepared to take down Heron Star Lord. The Heron Star Domain. The 5 supernovas were flying towards the Heron continent where the Heron Star Lord was. The Heron continent was a middle world-level continent created by True God Tier. That was his base camp, and the Heron Empire was also on this continent as the leading star. In the command room, Zhou looked at the dark blue star map that was similar to the starry sky in front of him. This was the special divine artifact, the Universe Star Map, that was specially awarded to him because he was favored by the Supreme Will. Divine Artifact Name, Universe Star Map, Grade of Divine Artifact, Event Exclusive, Special, Divine Artifact Law, all factions in the exclusive universe, including but not limited to lords of all races, local lords, scarlet factions, cosmic organizations, mystic realm factions, will be marked in real time in the Universe Star Map for the Lord of the Star Map to check their real-time location. Note, after the event ends, this Universe Star Map would break free from the restrictions of activity, also become a regular support-type divine artifact. There was only one function of this event's exclusive divine artifact, but this only function was very practical. Zhou could observe the distribution of factions in the Heron Star Domain, also occasionally take a look at the locations of the lords of the other races through this Universe Star Map, for example. After he was ready to attack the Heron Star Lord, he began to attack the lords of all races. At that time, he would become a hunter with a full Universe Star Map. Also the lords of all races and even other factions would become his prey. Chapter 1238, True God Tier Heron's Shock. Heron Continent. High up in the sky, where 5 supernovas were. Soldiers flew out and quickly lined up. In a short while, more than 50 billion soldiers and more than 50 god spirits flew out. They formed a shocking army that blotted out the sky. A huge shadow descended from the sky and enveloped the Heron continent. Zhou was the last to fly out of the supernova. He looked at the Heron continent below and realized that it was an ordinary Western illusion-type continent. The civilization was mainly a magical civilization, supplemented by some totem extraordinary tier systems, bloodline extraordinary tier systems, witchcraft extraordinary tier systems, and other extraordinary tier systems. Together, they created the comprehensive extraordinary tier system of the Heron continent. There were countless nations on the entire continent, and almost all of them were religious nations. Naturally, they believed in their true God Heron. Continental and faith. It's managed pretty well. Zhou commented in his heart. Then, he directly activated King and raised his strength to the level of a top-notch True God Tier advanced grade. Then, he silently activated the terrifying power of the Power Heavenly Emperor and raised his combat strength to the level of a Master God Tier. Boom! An incomparably shocking pressure erupted from Zhou body and swept towards the surroundings. At this moment, Zhou did not restrain his pressure at all. He released his pressure to his heart's content and descended on the entire Heron continent, as if announcing his arrival to the entire Heron continent. Rumble. At this moment, the entire Heron continent seemed to be unable to withstand Zhou pressure and actually trembled slightly. Countless living beings and even god spirits of the Heron continent were terrified at this moment. A depressing haze appeared in their hearts, as if there was an extremely terrifying existence living high in the sky above them, suppressing the entire Heron continent. In Heron Shrine in the central region of the Heron continent. The Heron Star Lord, who was sitting cross-legged on the throne with his eyes closed, suddenly opened his eyes and looked at Zhou. Who is this? A solemn look flashed in his eyes. Heron hesitated for a few seconds before standing up. Then, his divine body turned into a golden stream of light and flew towards Zhou. At the same time, Zhou also felt his strength and thought to himself, when using the identity of a mortal lord, use the King and the Power Heavenly Emperor the entire time to maintain your combat strength at the pseudo-Master God Tier level. Let the infinite worlds think from the beginning that I'm a super expert with peerless talent who can unleash combat power comparable to a master god tier at the true god tier stage. This way, those top bloodline races won't associate my identity with that of the Lord of the Blazing Sun. Otherwise, if one also used a secret technique to increase my strength by a large margin, allowing a mortal lord to directly advance from the mid-tier deity level to the master god tier level, it would be too easy to tell that one am the Lord of the Blazing Sun. Even if one have the twin body lord talent, those enemies who can mislead me and don't treat me as the Lord of the Blazing Sun will probably think that I'm related to the Lord of the Blazing Sun. Otherwise, how can there be such a coincidence in the world when we're all humans and have grasped heaven-defying laws and secret techniques to increase our strength? Zhou Fight thought to himself. Thankfully, when he was outside, activating the king and the power heavenly emperor the entire time was not a huge drain on him. Maintaining normalcy was no problem at all. At this moment, a golden light flew over from afar and arrived in front of Zhou. After the light dissipated, he saw Lord Heron among them. When Lord Heron saw these 50 billion soldiers, more than 50 god spirits, and Zhou, who was above all the soldiers and god spirits, he couldn't help but frown. They did not come with good intentions. However, after sizing up Zhou Fight for a long time, a question mark appeared in his mind. Who is this guy? Why don't I remember anything about him? There didn't seem to be such an expert among the surrounding top factions. Heron was very cautious even though he had no impression of Zhou because he felt a terrifying sense of threat from the other party. It was as if the other party could easily crush him with a single move. Esteemed guest, why have you suddenly descended on my Heron continent? True god tier Heron asked cautiously. I'm the lord of the human race. One came because my territory is in your Heron Star domain. I want to take over your Heron Star domain and become one of the territories of my mortal empire in order to make it easier to manage in the future. Zhou Fight said calmly. His words were very direct and hurtful. Aren't you being too direct even though you are powerful? So you're only here to inform me, not to discuss with me and ask for my permission, right? The Heron Star Lord felt a great humiliation. He was a true god-tier god spirit after all. He ruled over thousands of god spirits, hundreds of billions of professionals, and trillions of subjects. He was usually very respected by everyone. Even if they met other true god tiers, everyone treated each other equally and friendly. Very few true god tiers would be so rash when they came up to speak. This was the first time he had met a true god tier like Zhou Fight. He was very angry now. He had even neglected the fact that Zhou Fight had just mentioned the identity of the Lord of all races. I would like to experience your excellency's methods. True god tier Heron laughed angrily. I'd like that too. Zhou Fight smiled. A moment later. Heron Star Lord, who had a swollen face, stood obediently on the spot. The corners of his mouth twitched from time to time. Zhou Fight patted him on the shoulder with a kind expression and said the coldest words in the gentlest tone. Are you convinced? 1-1 am convinced. The Heron Star Lord hurriedly said, convinced by Zhou Fight's physical persuasion. Then he'll be the master of the Heron Star domain in the future. Is there a problem? No problem, no problem. You really did promise me sincerely, didn't you? Of course, of course. Very good. Zhou Fight nodded in satisfaction. Then, he patted the other party's shoulder and said, don't worry, you will still be in charge here. This emperor won't interfere too much. However, if you don't manage it well, be careful that this emperor will send someone to replace you. I will definitely manage it well. True god tier Heron's eyes lit up, and he hurriedly said respectfully. He even started to address himself as a subject. He also did not expect that he would be able to retain his authority over this place. In that case, wouldn't it be not much different from before? It was just that there was an additional emperor above his head. What's the big deal? True God-tier Heron didn't even think about anything that he couldn't manage well. He had always been good at managing the subjects. They were his believers after all. Zhou nodded slightly, seeing how happy he was. Then, he threw him a world ring and said, "Since you've already become a true god-tier of our mortal empire, this is your present for your appointment. Every one of my true god-tier god spirit would get one." True god-tier Heron was stunned for a moment. Then, he entered the world rings with his spiritual will and discovered a set of true god-tier divine artifacts with gold laws and the gift and exchange instructions inside. Zhou Fight ignored true god-tier Heron's ecstatic reaction and directly said, "I allow you to join our mortal empire and become a true god-tier of the mortal empire." True god-tier Heron recovered from his ecstasy and hurriedly said, "One will definitely." Before he could finish speaking, a lot of new information appeared in true god-tier Heron's mind. He was stunned, and then he looked at Zhou Fight in shock. "Your Majesty, we are," he said in shock. Chapter 1239 Hegemony Points. Obscure Lord Shop Points. We act in the name of the mortal empire during the event. Zhou Fight said calmly. "Yes, Your Majesty." True god-tier Heron suppressed the shock, excitement, and nervousness in his heart and hurriedly said. He never expected that the Lord faction he had joined was actually the legendary Lord faction of the common people's regal. No wonder. I was wondering which Lord faction of the factions actually had a master god-tier Lord overseeing it. So it is the Blazing Sun Empire of the common people's regal. Then it is fine. However, it is really strange. Why didn't I think of this when I heard His Majesty say that His Majesty is the Lord of the human race? True god-tier Heron was curious, but he did not dare to ask further. After Zhou Fight settled the Heron Star domain, a line of text suddenly appeared in front of him. Lord of the Race Event Notification, congratulations, you have successfully conquered True God-tier Heron and his forces. You obtained 100 million hegemony points. Lord of the Race Event Notification, you obtained 200 million obscure lordship points because you were the first to conquer the intermediate grade Empire tier forces in the first stage of the event. Zhou Fight's eyes lit up when he saw the notification. That was indeed the case. During the first stage of the event, he could start to conquer other lord factions and obtain some unexpected rewards. Well, under normal circumstances, the first stage of the Lord of the Race event was the time for the lords of the various races to fight among themselves. It was not the normal time for an invasion. He had ended the internal strife in advance and started to go out to conquer other lord factions in advance. No matter what, he should be rewarded. Hegemony points. And obscure lord shop points. Could this be the content of the activities of the lords of the races in the later stages? Zhou Fight was curious. Then, he stopped thinking about it. If he had the time, he might as well conquer more lords. Then, he did not waste any more time. After exchanging a few simple words with True God-tier Heron, he led the army and flew towards the nearest lord of all races nearby. The closest territory to the Heron continent was the territory of the lords of the Wind Spirit continent. At this moment, the Wind Spirit continent was in chaos because of the competition for the title of the first stage's lord of the race. The lords of all races of the Wind Spirit race fought against each other on this continent that did not have a large territory. When the races behind them saw this situation, in a moment of desperation, they wanted to imitate the humans and other top races and forcefully choose the strongest lord of the Wind Spirit race to directly complete the first stage of the Lord of the Race event. However, something went wrong when they chose the strongest lord of the Wind Spirit race. This was because the upper echelons of the Wind Spirit clan were not united. Some of the higher-ups wanted to choose this lord of all races to be the strongest lord of the Wind Spirit race. Some of the higher-ups wanted to choose the Wind Spirit Lord to be the strongest lord of all races. For the sake of each other's interests, the higher-ups argued endlessly and even fought in secret. The battle between the lords of the Wind Spirit race and the other races had yet to be resolved. The upper echelons of their race were about to fight. The reason for this situation was mainly because there was no one in the upper echelons of the wind spirit race like Zhou Zhou who could decide everything with a single word. When they made decisions, they all had their own opinions and refused to submit to each other. Under such circumstances, it would be strange if they could agree. After Zhou Fight came to the wind spirit continent and learned of this situation through the information gathered by Zero, he could not help but laugh. They were still fighting among themselves at a time like this? However, he immediately reacted. Perhaps there were only a few examples of people like him and the other top races who could quickly unify their opinions and choose the strongest lord of all races. And situations like the wind spirit race, where they argued endlessly and even killed each other for the benefit of the strongest lords of the myriad races, were the most usual in the first stage of the Lord of the Races activity. He shook his head and flew out of the supernova. After briefly showing his muscles, all the lords of the wind spirit race and the upper echelons of the wind spirit race were instantly stunned. Human. Mortal Empire. Since when did the human ethnicity have such a powerful lord of all races other than the common people's regal? He had already established an empire, and it was not inferior to the Blazing Sun Empire. The Blazing Sun Empire ruled by the common people's regal was only an intermediate-grade empire. Under the influence of the twin-body lord talent, these wind spirit clansmen did not think of the mortal lord and the mortal empire in front of them as the lord of the Blazing Sun and the Blazing Sun Empire. They had different appearances, different soldier types, different lord weapons, and different auras. Who can this lord be? That was what they subconsciously thought. New notifications appeared after Zhou Fight took down all the lords of the wind spirit continent. Lord of the Race event notification, congratulations, you have successfully conquered true god-tier Feng Wan and his forces. You obtained 100 million hegemony points. Lord of the Race event notification, you obtained 200 million obscure lordship points because you were the first to conquer the intermediate-grade empire tier forces in the first phase of the event. Notice, congratulations, you have successfully conquered all the lords of the wind spirit race. You have received 1000 hegemony points. Lord of the Race event notification, you obtained 200 million obscure lordship points because you were the first to conquer the intermediate-grade empire tier forces in the first phase of the event. Zhou Fight nodded in satisfaction after reading it. 1 conquest, 2 gains. Not bad, not bad. At this moment, Zhou Zhou's voice sounded in his mind. There shouldn't be any major problems on the cerulean planet. You'll be in charge for the time being. I have something to do. I have to go back to the high continent. I'll come back immediately if there's an emergency. Zhou Fight smiled and said. Don't worry, main body. Very few existences can threaten us as long as the Supreme God Realm and stronger experts don't appear. Focus on your work. Don't worry about us. Okay. Zhou Zhou replied simply and returned to the cerulean planet. Then, he returned to the high continent through the gate of summoning. After Zhou Zhou left, Zhou Fight used the universe star map departed behind by Zhou Zhou to begin his large-scale expansion. He divided the troops into 100 small armies and attacked the lords of all races at once. After the lord of all races came to the high continent, their power was severely weakened. Facing Zhou Fight's attack, they had no ability to resist at all and fell under the iron hooves of the mortal empire. As more and more lords fell, the reputation of the mortal empire spread to the ears of the lords of all races. At the same time, in the Blazing Sun Empire, Blazing Sun Imperial City, High Continent. Zhou Zhou had just returned when he received a piece of news. Orofa had returned with Jik and Seely. Chapter 1240 The excited and angry Orofa of the Blazing Sun Imperial Capital. The Central Emperor Palace, located at the center of the Blazing Sun's capital, which was the place where court meetings were usually held to receive foreign guests. At this moment, Orofa, Jik, and Seely were here. Zhou Manage was sitting on the throne not far away from them. Zhou Manage looked at Jik and Seely and felt the genuine God-tier professional's aura on them. He couldn't help but smile. "Thank you, Your Excellency Orofa." Zhou turned to Orofa and smiled. "You're too kind, Your Excellency. They are my disciples and granddaughters to begin with. They contributed to nurturing them. Why would they need to say the word hard work?" Orofa hurriedly said. After the Battle of Aus, the shocking fact that the common people's regal in front of him had the combat power of a master god-tier had already spread to the myriad worlds. The Sun Divine Court where Orofa was no exception. Even the two supreme existences of the Sun Divine Court and the Great Lunar Court personally praised Zhou, the common people's regal, after learning of his deeds. He was an unprecedented peerless lord. Any master god-tier had to be polite to a top-notch lifestyle god-spirit like Orofa, even though Orofa was only a top-notch true god-tier divine artifact forger. However, they would just be polite. It didn't mean that he was more honorable than a master god-tier. A true master god-tier existence had a much higher status than him. When he found out that Zhou had the combat power of a master god-tier, and that even Regal Great Solar and Regal Great Lunar were extremely polite to the Lord of the Blazing Sun, Orofa no longer felt any arrogance toward Zhou. Therefore, his current attitude was very humble. He even subconsciously tried to curry favor with him. When Zhou Manage saw Orofa's obvious change in attitude, he was a little surprised. Then, he thought for a moment and understood the reason. He smiled faintly and suddenly asked, "I wonder what plans Your Excellency has for the future." Orofa was stunned for a moment before falling silent. After a long while, he whispered, "I plan to return to the Sun Divine Court and continue to sharpen my forging skills. I hope to have the chance to advance to the level of the creator of artifacts in the future." The creator of artifacts. Zhou Manage raised his eyebrows and sized him up. Then, he shook his head in his heart. He could see that Orofa's potential was indeed at the Master God-tier level. However, having the potential of the Master God-tier level did not mean that he could definitely advance to that level of extraordinary tier profession. And Orofa could not be promoted to the Master God-tier creator of artifacts profession from his perspective because he had too many connections in his heart. These connections allowed him to have more, but they also made his talent in artifact refinement mediocre. Yes. Orofa couldn't tell what Zhou Manage was thinking. He looked at Jik and Seely after saying that. Then, a smile appeared on his face. He said respectfully to Zhou Manage, "Your Excellency Regal, I'll leave these two juniors to you. I don't have any other requests. I just hope that the two of them can be safe and sound." "Your Excellency, you don't have to worry about that." As divine artifact forgers, Jik and Seely spend most of their time creating and repairing equipment at the rear. Basically, they won't be in any danger. Even if they do encounter any danger, as long as our Blazing Sun Empire is still around, nothing major will happen to them. When Zhou Manage said this, his tone was very calm, but this calmness contained unparalleled and unquestionable confidence. Even Orofa was infected by the confidence in Zhou Manage's words. He relaxed and nodded with a smile. "Then I'm relieved. Oh yes. This is the pseudo-racial divine artifact, Shadow Canopy, that Your Excellency gave me last time. I've completely repaired it, and the effect is even stronger than before. Please take a look, Your Majesty." After Orofa finished speaking, he flipped his right hand and saw a divine object that emitted a faint black light like a black veil appear in his hand. It was the pseudo-racial divine artifact, Shadow Canopy. With a thought, Zhou Manage saw the Shadow Canopy teleport in front of him. Zhou Manage took it and looked it up and down. Then, he smiled. He praised Orofa. "As expected of the god of forging and sun, Your Excellency Orofa. This emperor is very satisfied with this restored pseudo-racial divine artifact. Your Excellency, this pseudo-race divine artifact has already accumulated a large amount of power of faith. If there's a certain opportunity, this pseudo-race divine artifact might be able to transform into a true race divine artifact. Orofa said. Zhou Manage nodded. Then, they chatted for a while. Orofa turned around and looked at Jik and Seely with reluctance. Then, he looked at Zhou Manage and stated respectfully. Your Excellency, it's getting late. I should return to the Sun Divine Court. If Your Excellency still needs to repair true God-tier divine artifacts or racial divine artifacts in the future, you can look for me through Seely and Jik. If I can't repair them, I can ask the divine artifact forgers I know for help. That would be great. Zhou Manage smiled. Orofa nodded. Then, he glanced at the imperial palace and was about to leave. At this moment, Zhou Manage's voice suddenly sounded behind him. By the way, Your Excellency Orofa, I wonder if Your Excellency has considered the matter that this emperor mentioned last time. Orofa turned around and respectfully said, I know Your Excellency's good intentions, but I've been in the Sun Divine Court for many years. It can even be stated that I've been in the Sun Divine Court for most of my life. I really can't suddenly let go of all these and turn to Your Majesty now. However, if Your Majesty needs anything, you can look for me through Jik and Seely. As long as I can do it, I will do my best. In that case, there's actually no difference whether I join Your Excellency's Blazing Sun Empire or not. Things have become different. Orofa did not dare to be as arrogant as last time, so he had already rejected her as tactfully as possible. The organization I'm in is the Sun Divine Court, and you're only the ruler of an Empire-tier Lord faction. Even if you're powerful and have a bright future, I'm already standing at the end of most life forms. Why should I give up everything to join you? Zhou Manage fell silent seeing this. When Orofa saw this, he wanted to turn around and leave again. Your Excellency Orofa, you probably want to advance to the level of creator of artifacts, right? Zhou's voice sounded. Orofa stood still and said helplessly and complicatedly, which weapon cultivator in the endless heavens doesn't want to reach the extreme realm of the creator of artifacts? However, in this emperor's opinion, Your Excellency's chances of accomplishing this are slim. After Zhou Manage completed speaking, he pretended to shake his head regretfully. Orofa suddenly turned around and stared at Zhou. He stated angrily, What do you mean, Your Excellency? As a true God-tier divine artifact forger who was loyal to the art of craftsmanship, he definitely could not tolerate others saying that he could not reach the realm he dreamed of. This was because he had been trudging along this path to begin with. As he advanced, he often doubted if he could do it. If he met the other party who stated such things again, it would be no different from adding insult to injury. He was really afraid that he would believe such words. Then, he would appear unchanged on the surface, but in fact, he had already lost the pursuit in his heart. It was worse than killing him for such a god spirit. Furthermore, his teacher had previously stated something similar to him. Under the double questioning, even if the opponent was the common people's regal that he couldn't deal with, he couldn't control his emotions. Chapter 1241 Impurity. Promise beside them, Jik and Seely looked at their teacher and grandfather with some unfamiliarity. Why did this old man who was worthy of respect suddenly become a little unfamiliar at this moment? His Majesty had only expressed his opinion. Why did their teacher/grandfather suddenly seem to have been provoked and become extreme? Zhou smiled and said. Your Excellency, don't be angry, this emperor has yet to finish my sentence. Your Excellency, do you feel that you're not as concentrated as before when forging divine artifacts recently? Do you feel that the current you is very different from the previous you? Do you feel that in some aspects, the current you is even inferior to the previous you? Do you feel that you're improving less frequently than when you were weak? Do you even feel that you're more mediocre than before? Orofa couldn't help but widen his eyes when Zhou Manage started talking. The more Zhou Manage spoke, the more shocked he became. When he reached the end, he fell silent. Seeing this, Zhou Manage smiled and said, "Your Excellency seems to have noticed it. You have the precious wealth, status, power, and fame that countless life forms dream of. In the eyes of other living beings, you are already standing at the end of their dreams. However, it is precisely because of these things that you have begun to fall into ease. To put it bluntly, you have already been dragged down by this wealth and are no longer as pure as before. Pureness might not be important to other things, but it's very important to forging skills. In fact, if you want to reach the peak of your skills, pure success is one of the most important determinants of your skills. Your Excellency Orofa, you have the talent of a master god tier. In fact, you already have the admission ticket to the door of the creator of artifacts. However, if you're too attached to the flowers and plants on the road, the admission ticket might expire and be invalid." Orofa opened his mouth wide and looked at Zhou Zhou in a daze. At this moment, Zhou Zhou in his eyes seemed to have become the figure of his teacher. The words of that time seemed to resound in his ears again. "Disciple. Put it down. What you care about has become a shackle to imprison you." Orofa originally thought that his teacher was saying that he was too concerned about pursuing the creator of artifacts and had neglected whether his talent was enough to pursue this dream. From the looks of it, his teacher probably didn't mean that at all. It was just like what Your Excellency, the common people's regal, had said. What he cared about was the status, power, fame, identity, and resources he had in the Sun Divine Court. These things had made him who he was today and also made he feel at ease and lazy, allowing these things to imprison him. After a long silence, Orofa smiled bitterly and said, "How could I not know about these things? However, knowing is one thing, being able to walk out of it is another. Do I have to give up everything I have in front of me and only continue to pursue the creator of artifacts?" Zhou Manage said. "That depends on Your Excellency Orofa's choice. Besides, you don't have to give up everything. In addition, this emperor can remind you that if you really become the creator of artifacts, you will only have much more than what you have now. If you're troubled by the difficulties and don't become the creator of artifacts, you're actually still a true god-tier divine artifact forger. You can actually get back what you lost. Let's see if Your Excellency dares to make this choice." When Orofa heard this, a conflicted expression immediately appeared on his face. Zhou Manage looked at him for a long time without making a decision. He finally revealed his trump card and his ultimate goal for saying so much. "Your Excellency Orofa, join this Emperor's blazing sun empire. If Your Excellency Orofa is willing to join this Emperor's blazing sun empire, this Emperor guarantees that you will become the creator of artifacts in the future." Zhou Manage said. "Are you serious, Your Excellency?" Orofa was stunned for a moment before saying in disbelief. Even the legendary Supreme God realm might not guarantee that a true god-tier divine artifact forger could turn into a creator of artifacts in the myriad worlds. That was because master god tiers were all gods who had walked their own nomological path. Every master god tier's nomological path was unique. Hence, it was very difficult for true gods to turn into master gods with the help of other god spirits. He could only rely on himself on this path. Therefore, he found Zhou Manage's words unbelievable. Could this common people's regal be able to do this? However, judging from how the Supreme will favor this lord, it did seem possible. His heart immediately stirred upon thinking of this. This emperor's words are absolutely true. Zhou Manage smiled. What a joke. He had already promised the War Master God to help them advance to the Supreme God realm in the future. He had already agreed to this ridiculous request. Why would he be afraid of a request from a creator of artifacts who had advanced to the level of a Master God tier? He could just find a Master God tier creator of artifacts and kill him. He could just give him the Book of the God Spirit. then am willing to join His Majesty's Blazing Sun Empire. After hearing Zhou Manage's words, Orofa thought for a long time before finally agreeing. He couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief after making this decision. He felt like he had let go of something. At this moment, Zhou Manage grinned and said, "There's no hurry. First, settle your matters in the Sun Divine Court before coming to this emperor to take office." "Oh yes. This is your reward." Zhou Manage threw a world ring over. After Orofa received it, his divine sense entered it and discovered that not only was there a complete set of true God-tier advanced-grade divine artifacts, there were also a total of 100 sets of true God-tier divine artifacts forging blueprints. At this moment, even a true God-tier divine artifact forger like Orofa, who came from a top lord faction like the Sun Divine Court, was stunned. Regardless of whether it was the 6 true God-tier divine artifacts or the 100 forging blueprints of the true God-tier divine artifacts, they were not a small sum to him. He did not expect to receive such a generous gift as soon as he joined the Blazing Sun Empire. The nervousness and uneasiness in Orofa's heart because he was about to leave the Sun Divine Court abruptly dissipated a lot. Not only because of the true God-tier divine artifacts and the forging blueprints, but also because of the strength and future potential of the Blazing Sun Empire. "Thank you, Your Holiness," Orofa said respectfully. Zhou Manage nodded. Then, they chatted for a while before Orofa bade farewell and left. He wanted to return to the Sun Divine Court and settle the procedures for resignation. "Your Majesty, will my instructor be all right?" Jik could not help but worry. Seely, who was beside him, had the same worried expression. "Don't worry, this emperor has already calculated that he will return safely." Zhou Manage smiled. Jik and Seely heaved a sigh of relief. At the same time, in the ruins of the original Elven Empire, Zhou and the resurrected Nadia were standing in the ruins of the Imperial Palace. In front of them was a tombstone that had just been built. It was Elizariel's cenotaph. Chapter 1242 Conversation with Collier. Zhou stood behind Nadia, who had just been resurrected, and looked at the former capital of the original Elven Empire. The once glorious and noble imperial palace had already turned into ruins, and all the treasures and wealth inside had been plundered. Even the throne that Elizariel had once sat on had been divided into several parts and forcefully shattered and taken away by the fleeing subjects of the original Elven Empire. He looked towards the east. The Elven Mother Tree that had once been as huge as the sky had also disappeared at this moment, leaving behind a terrifying deep pit that covered an area of hundreds of square kilometers and looked like an unfathomable abyss. It hasn't been long, things have really changed. War can allow a country to accumulate wealth by leaps and bounds. It can also make a country disappear in a few days. Zhou shook his head silently. At the same time, he quietly felt the Lord laws circulating in his heart. He sensed it for a long time before looking at Nadia in front of him. At this moment, Nadia was kneeling in front of Elizariel's cenotaph in silence. No one knew what she was thinking. "Elizariel, oh Elizariel, it's already better than many emperors for you to have such a heroic general loyal to you in your life." Zhou thought to himself as he looked at Nadia's back. At this moment, Nadia moved slightly. Then, she turned around and bowed to Zhou. "Thank you, Your Excellency, for bringing me here to see Her Majesty one last time," he said. His voice was a little low, and it was no longer as lively and relaxed as Zhou remembered. "Why are you saying this even though we have his friendship?" Zhou smiled. Then, he said seriously. For the sake of the Empire and its people, Elizariel had already made up her mind. I felt that even if I could reverse time to revive, the revived Elizariel would probably still choose to commit suicide again, so I didn't revive him. "I understand, Your Excellency." Nadia nodded. Then, he looked at Elizariel's grave and said in a low voice, "You're right. If you revive without his consent, he might commit suicide again. Her Majesty Elizaril is such an emperor. Zhou nodded. Then, the two of them stayed here for a while before leaving together. On the way back, Nadia suddenly looked at Zhou and said, "Your Excellency. Now that the original Elven Empire has been destroyed and Her Majesty Elizaril has passed away, I no longer have a country to return to. I wonder if Your Excellency is willing to take in a countryless elf like me, Nadia." Zhou interrupted her and said with a smile, "I need you. Come help me." Nadia was stunned for a moment before she nodded firmly. She knew that her meager strength was actually useless to Zhou. He only said these words to make herself feel more comfortable joining the Blazing Sun Empire. He didn't need to do this at all with his strength and status. However, he still put away all to help her. It was obvious how much he valued her. Even if the relationship between the two of them was just a chance encounter in the time ruins. Recalling what this Your Excellency had done for her in the past, Nadia couldn't help but feel a little dazed. Zhou had done too much for her. She was alone and had nothing to repay him with. She could only repay him like how she worked for Elizaril with her life. She would have no regrets even if she died. It was a pity that the other party already had a family. Otherwise, I could still. As soon as this thought appeared, Nadia, who was panicking, dismissed it. A moment later, in the Blazing Sun Imperial capital. After Zhou returned with Nadia, he got someone to arrange her residence while he returned to the shrine. After some thought, he opened the friend list on his personal terminal and opened a friend's video call. In less than 10 seconds, the other party took it. A purple behemoth emperor exuding a domineering aura was in the video with an extremely respectful expression. It was the Emperor of the Behemoth Divine Kingdom, Collier. "Collier greets Your Majesty." Collier bowed. "Collier, have you found the true God-tier master-servant territory contract?" Zhou asked. "There's already news. We've already sent our subordinates to buy it. The true God-tier master-servant territory contract will be sent over tomorrow at the earliest." Collier immediately said. "Tomorrow?" Zhou stroked his chin and pondered for a moment before nodding. "All right, after the master-servant territory contract is delivered tomorrow, our two countries will immediately form a contract and become master-subordinate territorial relations, and the Behemoth Divine Kingdom will be the Emperor's subordinate Divine Kingdom." Of course. Collier had mixed feelings, but he said respectfully on the surface. "Prepare yourself. Once the contract is formed tomorrow, this emperor will let you fight with the Empire's army." Zhou suddenly said. "Already?" Collier was shocked. Wasn't it a little too rushed to combat as soon as they formed a contract? The first stage of the Lord of the Races event is only 3 days in total. How long do you want to drag it out? Zhou glanced at him and said indifferently, "Don't use the concept of time to define the Lord of all races in front of you. Be careful not to fall asleep and wake up to find that your Behemoth Divine Kingdom has been destroyed for hundreds of years." Zhou glanced at him and said indifferently, "Don't use the concept of time to define the Lord of all races in front of you. Be careful not to fall asleep and wake up to find that your Behemoth Divine Kingdom has been destroyed for hundreds of years." "I understand. I will never make such a mistake," Collier hurriedly said. He naturally knew that Zhou was right. With the support of the Supreme Will, the growth of the lords was very fast, far exceeding the imagination of the local lords in this Lord of all races contest after all. In the past, there were examples of kingdoms and even empires being born in such a short period of time. However, there would definitely not be as many examples as there were now. The Supreme Will was naturally using the activities and rewards he had set up to add fuel to the fire. Zhou did not say anything when he saw this. Instead, he grinned faintly and said, "You have to be prepared." Currently, even though there are many lord factions and even race factions that have submitted to this emperor, there has never been a case of a divine kingdom lord faction coming to submit. You could be said to be the first person to do such a thing. You're under a lot of pressure. In addition, the enemies this emperor will deal with tomorrow are not simple either. You have to do your best to make preparations. Otherwise, once there are serious casualties or something like that, although this emperor will revive you all equally, you will be recorded in the credit book. Collier's heart trembled, and he agreed heavily. I will do my best to prepare. Zhou nodded. Then, he didn't say anything else and hung up the video call before looking into the distance and revealed a faint smile. The various races in the outside world should soon know that my Blazing Sun Empire has 3 top-notch Master God tier existences protecting it. In addition, after tomorrow, information of the Behemoth Divine Kingdom choosing to join me will spread. The combination of the two is enough to cause a stunning storm among the myriad races in the world. It will let all the lords and races know that this era has shifted because of me as the Lord of all races. Chapter 1243 Upgrading the Original Dragon Abyss. Time Divine Dragon, Kyoto. Before this, many top-notch lord factions and race factions were wavering in the new and old eras, not knowing which position to choose. Only some weak races and lords have joined me until now. Even though there are many of them, they are far from qualitative change. They can't help me much for the time being. After tomorrow, there should be some top factions willing to stand on my side. Zhou muttered to himself. His expression was calm as usual. In fact, he was already burning with ambition. He wanted to rely on his own strength to unite many lords and races to overturn this era of top-notch bloodline races reigning supreme. As for relying on his own strength to become enemies with the myriad worlds, no lord would have such thoughts. Of course, if he continued to become stronger, it wasn't impossible for he to become enemies with all the races in the world alone. Why did he have to choose the most difficult path when he could easily reach the finish line? The matter of becoming stronger could be done after reaching the end point. Then, he came to the Gate of Summoning. After carefully looking at the construction information of the Gate of Summoning, he quickly discovered the Lord Talent information of the original Dragon Abyss. Building name, Original Dragon Abyss, Construction Level, Black Iron Tier Elementary Grade, Construction Effect. You can summon 1 green bronze tier elementary grade pure-blooded dragon every day from the original Dragon Abyss and become a subject under the Lord. There is a 1% chance of summoning a legendary dragon. Construction upgrade, 10,000 units of wood, 10,000 units of fine sand, 10,000 units of metal, 10,000 units of stone, 1,000 black iron tier mist core, 100 basic elemental gems, territory upgraded to black iron tier intermediate grade. Prompt, do you want to summon immediately? Zhou couldn't help but click his tongue after reading it. The strength of this Lord Talent was a little heaven-defying. Summoning a pure-blooded dragon every day. Wasn't this equivalent to having 1 Nazario a day? Zhou knew very well how strong Nazario was at the early stage. It could even be said that if not for Nazario being his strongest combatant in the early stages, even if he could reach his current level, he would definitely be much slower. As for the 1% chance of summoning a legendary dragon, there was no need to mention it. It was no exaggeration to say that a black iron tier elementary grade legendary dragon was equivalent to 100 black iron tier Nazarios. If someone is lucky enough to summon a legendary dragon on the first day of the lordship, then even if I have the combination of the King of Loots and Nazario, I might still be able to defeat them. Zhou sighed. Fortunately, he didn't. Then, his gaze landed on the building upgrade conditions. It had to be said that the requirements for upgrading this building were quite ridiculous. Not only did he need a lot of materials, he had just advanced from black iron tier elementary grade to black iron tier advanced grade, and he was already asking for basic elemental gemstones. Even a top-notch lord with the original Dragon Abyss would not be able to accumulate so many upgrade resources in a long time, right? He shook his head and then threw in 40,000 units of basic resources, 10,000 black iron tier mist cores, and 100 basic elemental gems. A dark purple light came from the gate of summoning. Then, the information of the buildings in the original Dragon Abyss was updated. Building name, Original Dragon Abyss, construction level, black iron tier intermediate grade, construction effect. You can summon 2 green bronze tier intermediate grade pure-blooded dragons from the original Dragon Abyss every day and become a subject under the Lord. There is a 1% chance of summoning a legendary dragon. Construction upgrade, 50,000 units of wood, 50,000 units of fine sand, 50,000 units of metal, 50,000 units of stone, 5,000 black iron tier mist core, 500 basic elemental gems, territory upgraded to black iron tier advanced grade. Prompt, do you want to summon immediately? Zhou still did not select to summon and continued to spend resources to level up. Words soon appeared. After 2 more upgrades, he had upgraded the original Dragon Abyss to the green bronze tier elementary grade. Building name, Original Dragon Abyss, construction level, green bronze tier elementary grade, construction effect. You can summon 3 green bronze tier elementary grade pure-blooded dragons and 1 white silver tier elementary grade pure-blooded dragon from the original Dragon Abyss every day to become a subject under the Lord. There is a 2% chance of summoning a legendary dragon. Construction upgrade, 1 million units of wood, 1 million units of fine sand, 1 million units of metal, 1 million units of stone, 100,000 black iron tier mist core, 10,000 basic elemental gems, territory upgraded to green bronze tier intermediate grade. Prompt, do you want to summon immediately? Zhou couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. The might of the original Dragon Abyss had truly shocked him. Without any hesitation, he continued to select to upgrade. A large number of resources were quickly consumed. After more than an hour, he finally advanced the original Dragon Abyss to the mid-tier deity level intermediate grade. At this level, the original Dragon Abyss could no longer proceed to advance due to the limitations of its territory. Only then did Zhou look at its latest establishing information. Building name, Original Dragon Abyss, construction level, mid-tier deity level intermediate grade, construction effect. Every day, you can summon 60 million green bronze tier intermediate grade dragons, 6 million white silver tier intermediate grade dragons, 600,000 yellow gold tier intermediate dragons from the original Dragon Abyss. 6 high-tier deity-level dragon gods will become subjects under the Lord. There is an 11% chance of summoning legendary dragons. Construction upgrade, 1,000 trillion units of wood, 1,000 trillion units of fine sand, 1,000 trillion units of metal, 1,000 trillion units of stone, 1 billion intermediate deity-level divine crystals, 1 billion basic elemental gems. Prompt, do you want to summon immediately? After reading it, Zhou fell silent. He let out a long breath following a long while. Summoning more than 60 million pure-blooded dragons in a day. I've learned something new. It hasn't been long since I summoned all the dragons in the original Dragon Abyss. This Lord talent was so ridiculous that Zhou began to worry if there were so many pure-blooded dragons in the original Dragon Abyss. With the methods of the Supreme Will, such a thing shouldn't happen. Zhou shook his head and did not think too much about it. He chanted the summoning in his heart. At the same time, he ordered the original Dragon Abyss to transfer all the 60 million pure-blooded dragons summoned to the inner world of Cosmos Emperor in his territory. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. In an instant, a large number of pure-blooded dragons descended into the Cosmos Emperor's inner world. Wind Dragon, Fire Dragon, Emerald Dragon, Lava Dragon, Shadow Dragon, Undead Dragon, Mountain Dragon, Light Spirit Dragon, Wind Thunder Dragon, Formless Dragon, Fierce Claw Dragon, Dark Dragon, Green Bronze Tier Dragon. All kinds of pure-blooded dragons descended into this boundless space. There were more than 6,000 of them, looking quite spectacular and shocking. Among the many pure-blooded dragons, a special dragon was quite eye-catching among them. This dragon was more than 100 light-years tall and majestic. He was silver-white in color, and there was a silver holy crown on his head. His body was surrounded by time phantoms. The time phantoms were like a supreme divine robe draped over his body. On it, there was a faint illusory scene of the past and future of various worlds. An aura that Zhou Zhou was familiar with appeared on his body. Zhou Zhou saw the dragon through the internal world projection of the spaceship. He couldn't help but raise his eyebrows as his eyes revealed a look of shock. Time Divine Dragon, Kyoto. What kind of luck is this? How did I summon this big shot on my first try? He muttered to himself. Chapter 1244 God of Books. Want to write an autobiography? Zhou Zhou looked at the silver-white legendary dragon with shock in his eyes. This legendary dragon Big Shot was considered a legendary existence even among the legendary dragons. It was said that not only was the other party knowledgeable, he could also see through the future of life forms. What he loved the most was to travel through the various timelines and see the evolution of the world's life forms in each timeline. From there, he could comprehend the laws of time. Many legendary dragons had to show their respect to Kyoto. Moreover, they had more or less received the favor of the Time Divine Dragon during their growth. Among the legendary dragons, only the original dragon, the yellow-gold sacred dragon god, and a few other top legendary dragons could suppress the other party in terms of status. Just as Zhou Zhou was in shock, the Time Divine Dragon in the Cosmos Emperor's inner world glanced in Zhou Zhou's direction before disappearing. The next second, he appeared in front of Zhou Zhou. Time Divine Dragon, Kyoto, greets Your Excellency Common People's Regal. Kyoto chuckled. Your Excellency Kyoto. Zhou Zhou returned the greeting politely. The Kyoto in front of him was only at the mid-tier deity level intermediate grade. This was naturally not the other party's true strength, but was probably because he wanted to adapt to the rules of the original Dragon Abyss that this Big Shot specially reduced his strength to the mid-tier deity level intermediate grade. If the other party wanted to recover the strength of a Master God tier at his peak, he could probably do it with a thought. At this moment, Kyoto spoke again. I traveled through time and came here for one matter. I was entrusted by a good friend who would like me to write a book for Your Majesty, an autobiography, and then keep it in his library. Oh. Zhou Zhou was a little curious. May I know who is Your Excellency's good friend? He claims to be the god of books. His greatest hobby is to write, read, and collect books. Kyoto smiled and said, I met him by chance and became good friends with him. He specially instructed me that if you're unwilling, he is also able to write an autobiographical book about you, Regal, by collecting information and myths. I wonder what does Your Excellency Regal think about that? By the way, my good friend also said that if Your Majesty is willing, after the book is completed, he will give you a gift. Zhou Zhou did not hesitate when he heard that. He smiled and said, It's not impossible to write a book as long as you don't pry into my privacy. However, this is my autobiography after all. I want to take a look after the book is completed. I want to delete it if there's anything inappropriate. This is Your Excellency's right, Kyoto said with a smile. Most of the content recorded in your autobiography is about your personal experience and some interviews. There won't be any privacy that you don't want to see. In that case, I have no objections. Zhou Zhou nodded. It was nothing more than a book that recorded his experiences. It was no big deal. He'll have to trouble you for a while in the future. If there's a need, I can use my old bones to fight for Your Excellency. Kyoto smiled. That's great. Zhou Zhou smiled and said, He'll have to rely on Your Excellency to take care of me in the future. This Your Excellency should be a top-notch Master God tier existence who was a Master God tier advanced grade. Even though they weren't the top 10 Master God tiers, they were considered one of the best Master God tiers apart from the top 10 Master God tier experts. With Your Excellency by his side, Zhou Zhou felt extremely safe. After that, he opened the door to the army and incorporated the 60 million pure-blooded dragons, including Kyoto, into the Dragon God army. As the Dragon God army had never had a true God expert, in addition to the fact that they were all pure-blooded dragons, there were very few of them. Therefore, they had always been the weakest army under him. Now, with the addition of more than 60 million pure-blooded dragons and the Master God tier Kyoto, the Dragon God army's strength was no longer inferior to the Blazing Sun army. Then, he thought for a moment and said, "Your Excellency Kyoto, there are still 2 to 3 hours left today. I plan to bring my troops out to train and conquer a few territories. Would Your Excellency like to come along?" The main reason was that he and the Insight defection of the Star Alliance masters under him had yet to be used. He wanted to use the remaining time to instigate the Insight defection. Sure. Kyoto smiled and nodded. He would show his point of view to His Majesty since he wanted to perceive his abilities. In that case, he would show it to this regal. He looked at the regal and felt the rich light sacred dragon bloodline and the aura of the other legendary dragons. He sighed inwardly. This regal really had a deep relationship with the dragons. It was actually related to so many legendary dragons. In the current era of the Lord of all races, it was unknown if this relationship was good or bad. He could take this opportunity to follow this regal and see his prospect and the fate of the myriad worlds. Kyoto, who walked the law of time and cultivated the law of fate at the same time, was very curious about Zhou Zhou's fate and future. Zhou Zhou quickly set off with the army. The number of troops and god spirits that Bai Yun and the others had taken away only accounted for half of the total number of troops and god spirits under him. Therefore, half of them were left behind in the Blazing Sun Empire to be in charge of going out to fight and protect the territory. However, it was only half of them. There were a total of 500 trillion soldiers, more than 1 million god spirits, and more than 700 true god tiers. In addition, Bai Yun's main body was taking the Eternal Mothership to Cerulean Planet, and her clone was following Zhou Zhou through the Gate of Summoning. Now that Bai Yun was already a true god tier expert, it was easy for her to create a low-tier deity-level elementary grade clone that could not last long. As for the Time Divine Dragon, Kyoto, even though he was mentally prepared, he could not help but exclaim in his heart when he saw Zhou Zhou's army. This number of troops and god spirits was too ridiculous. Even some Divine Kingdom Lord factions might not have so many soldiers and god spirits. It was hard to imagine that this was a force that lords of all races could have at this stage. However, it was precisely because of this that this human lord in front of him had made a name for himself as the common people's regal. There were only wrong names and no wrong titles. Not to mention the title of regal personally given by the Supreme Will. Kyoto pondered for a few seconds. Then, he saw a silver light flash on his body. He had turned into an old man in a silver divine robe. He took out a book and a pen out of thin air and commenced to write on the book. Zhou Zhou was slightly surprised to perceive this. It started just like that. He didn't mind and continued doing whatever he wanted. "Your Majesty." Luo Sheng, who had already become a true god-tier expert, strolled up to Zhou Zhou and uttered respectfully, "We still have about 56 seconds before we reach the high-level Scarlet Empire, Blue Dew Empire, which is adjacent to our territory." High-level Scarlet Empire. Zhou Zhou raised his brows slightly and asked in confusion, was there such a high-level Scarlet Empire around our territory in the past? Why don't I have any impression of it? As the ruler of a country, he knew very well who the countries around his country were. However, he had no impression of the Blue Dew Scarlet Empire at all. Chapter 1245 Activate the 10,000 Spirit Saint. Your Majesty, this high-level Scarlet Empire was born during the King of 10,000 Kings event, and it's not the only one. There are many such high-level Scarlet Empires, and their territories are all connected to our Blazing Sun Empire. The reason why so many Scarlet forces could rise so quickly is mainly because they were born from a calamity like the calamity of the myriad races. The Scarlet Invasion forces that came from the Crimson Great Cosmos left a large number of resources and Scarlet Remnant forces that couldn't retreat in time before they left the High Continent. It was these forces that formed the new Scarlet Lords. And, originally, most of the lords around our territory retreated in advance to find new territories because they were afraid of us and were afraid that we would invade them. Even though we tried our best to occupy the ownerless areas that they left behind, there were still some areas that we couldn't occupy in time. These Scarlet Lord forces took advantage of the situation and occupied these ownerless areas to establish a new Scarlet Lord force. Luo Xing explained. I see. Zhou Zhou came to a realization. Then, he smiled. The other Lord factions are so afraid of us that they fled. When these Scarlet factions saw this situation, not only did they stay far away from me, but they actually dared to occupy those ownerless areas and dominate under my nose. You're really bold. Zhou Zhou shook his head. Your Majesty, even though these ownerless areas are abandoned, there are still a large number of buildings without blueprints on them. As long as these buildings are placed in the building blueprint, they will recover their functions and can be used directly. This is indeed a great temptation for some Scarlet Lords who don't have a kingdom or territories. In this era, there are many lords who are bold. Luo Xing smiled. In this era where the Lord of all races, the Supreme Will, and the Crimson Overlord were enemies, those who were timid would not dare to be lords. Anyone who had been a lord for a long time would be very bold. That makes sense also. Zhou Zhou was speechless. Then, he said, in that case, let's destroy these fellows who have occupied our territory and subdue our territory. Those ownerless regions had appeared because of him and the Blazing Sun Empire. In Zhou Zhou's eyes, they were left to him by the lords of the people of foreign races who had retreated because they were afraid of him. How could he allow his territory to be occupied by Scarlet Fog monsters? AUS had been chased away by him. How could he tolerate this? Yes, Your Majesty. Luo Xing said solemnly. He shared the same thoughts as Zhou Zhou. That was to never allow the Blazing Sun Empire's territory to be contaminated by external enemies. The Cosmos Emperor had already arrived at the Blue Dew Scarlet Empire. At Luo Xing's order, all the soldiers, heroes, and god spirits flew out of Cosmos Emperor and stood in the sky, looking down at the Blue Dew Scarlet Empire. Nearly 50 billion soldiers, 1 million god spirits, and more than 700 true god tier stood in the sky, casting a huge shadow on the territory of the Blue Dew Scarlet Empire. Zhou Zhou observed the Blue Dew Scarlet Empire below. After a few seconds, he raised his eyebrows slightly and clicked his tongue in wonder. It seems that they're not all fools who only know how to occupy territory. They still know to guard against us. After hearing Zhou Zhou's words, Luo Xing also looked down at the territory of the Blue Dew Scarlet Empire. When he saw the situation inside, he was immediately shocked. He said in disbelief, why are there so many Scarlet soldiers and Scarlet god spirits? Did they join forces? I think so. Zhou Zhou nodded and looked for a while before saying, there are about 300 trillion Scarlet soldiers, 5 million Scarlet god spirits, and more than 300 true god tiers. At least 100,000 Scarlet Lord forces have gathered here, and there's no lack of Scarlet Empire tier Lord forces. It's hard for them to gather so many Scarlet soldiers and Scarlet god spirits. He clicked his tongue in wonder. With so many Scarlet soldiers and true god tiers, they could fight against a Divine Kingdom Lord faction. He originally thought that this trip was just an ordinary Insight defection activity. He didn't expect to meet a good opponent. Good, good, good. The more the merrier. The more you come, the more satisfying it will be for me, the 10,000 spirit saint. How did they react so quickly? How did they know that we would come to our door first and set up our troops here in advance? Luo Sheng was a little surprised. Your Excellency is most likely to attack the Blue Dew Scarlet Empire first because the Scarlet Empire closest to the Blazing Sun Empire's borders. In addition, the Blue Dew Scarlet Empire's king is the strongest Scarlet True God tier among them, so he has the authority to gather all the Scarlet soldiers and God spirits here. Kyoto's eyes flashed with the light of the law of time. Luo Sheng nodded in realization. At this moment, the Scarlet Army below also discovered the Blazing Sun Army that was moving unhindered in the sky. The Blazing Sun Empire is here. This is much more terrifying than our military strength. There are so many God spirits and true God tiers. It looks like we can't defeat them. Run. If we stay here, we'll die. A bunch of idiots. Ah. Humph. Those who dare to say that they want to escape will be killed without mercy. When the Scarlet Army below noticed the Blazing Sun Empire's army in God spirits, most of them immediately panicked. Even though the military strength of both sides was not much different at this moment, the Blazing Sun Empire and the common people's regal were famous. Even the Scarlet invading army led by an existence like AUS had been defeated by them. These little armies still had some self-awareness. They knew that even if both sides had similar military strength, it would be very difficult for them to defeat the other party. At this moment, the ruler of the Blue Dew Scarlet Empire, True God Blue Dew Scarlet, had spoken. The Blue Dew True God tier's true form was formed from the Blue Dew True Water of the elemental realm. It looked completely blue, but its eyes were scarlet. He looked at the flustered Red Army and stated coldly, "Where can you run to? We only have one way out now, and that is to kill our way out. All Scarlet soldiers, Scarlet heroes, Scarlet God spirits, and Scarlet True God tier. On my command, attack with me." He shouted at the end. Then, he was the first to charge towards the army of the Blazing Sun Empire. Countless Scarlet True God tiers, Scarlet God spirits, and Scarlet soldiers followed closely behind. Zhou nodded his head and activated the 10,000 Spirit Saint the moment they exchanged blows. Prompt, you have activated your mythical tier unique Lord Talent, 10,000 Spirit Saint. All spirits see you as a supreme saint and long to follow you. Lord Talent Notification 1. A total of 351,568,568 Black Iron Tier Scarlet Soldiers, 217,501,107,500 Green Bronze Tier Scarlet Soldiers, 165,500,124,738 White Silver Tier Scarlet Soldiers, 114,352,503 Legendary Tier Scarlet Soldiers, 861,503 Low-Tier Deity Level Scarlet God Spirits, 522,306 Mid-Tier Deity Level Scarlet God Spirits, 151,250 High-Tier Deity Level Scarlet God Followers, and 150,000 High-Tier True God Followers. A smile appeared on Zhou's face. The 10,000 Spirit Saint had directly incited 1,565,250,160,540 Red Soldiers, 1,535,059 Scarlet God Spirits, and 151 True God Tiers. Now, the number of troops under him had already reached 1,148,774, 5,058. 13,003,446 soldiers, 3,575,525 God spirits, and 1,713 true God tiers. My troops have officially broken through the quadrillion level. Zhou was excited. Chapter 1246 The Editor's Preface of the Time Dragon God on the battlefield, the Blue Dew Scarlet Empire led more than 3 trillion Scarlet Alliance troops, and there was an internal strife in an instant. Half of the Scarlet soldiers, the Scarlet God Spirit, and the Scarlet True God Tier suddenly turned around and attacked their comrades with a fierce and fanatical expression and were caught off guard. More than 20 trillion Scarlet Soldier God Spirits were either dead or injured. This internal strife directly reduced the Blue Dew Scarlet Empire's available military strength to more than 120 trillion. On the other hand, the Blazing Sun Empire's combat strength had reached an astonishing 600 trillion. Coupled with the internal tension caused by the internal strife, the soldiers of the Blue Dew Scarlet Empire's alliance army began to distrust their comrades. Their overall combat strength had decreased by more than 50%. On the other hand, the morale of the Blazing Sun Empire's army was rising. The situation on the battlefield instantly leaned towards the Blazing Sun Empire. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that the Blazing Sun Empire's victory was already set in stone. What followed was just a matter of time. When True God Tier Blue Dew saw the obvious difference in morale, despair flashed across his eyes. Why were they at such a huge disadvantage when the war had just begun? Could this be the terrifying aspect of the common people's regal and the Blazing Sun Empire? At this moment, Scarlet True God Tier Blue Dew and the other Scarlet True God Tier suddenly understood why AUS had lost to this human lord despite having such a terrifying army. However, Scarlet True God Tier Blue Dew quickly realized that his despair had only just begun. As soon as the soldiers of both sides came into contact, the Yellow Talisman Dao soldiers and Forbidden Mages of the Blazing Sun Empire quickly displayed their superb combat strength that far exceeded the Empire Tier soldier types. They directly suppressed the soldiers of the Scarlet Empire's allied army on the Blue Dew Scarlet Empire's side. Seeing this, Blue Dew and Scarlet True God Tier felt even more despair. If the Scarlet Alliance army still had a 10% chance of winning, after the Blazing Sun Empire's soldiers displayed their superpowers, the probability of them winning was 0%. Half an hour later, peace returned to the battlefield. The Blue Dew Scarlet Empire was completely wiped out. The Blazing Sun Empire's army won a complete victory and began to clean up the battlefield. What a crushing war! Kyoto shook his head. The difference was too great and he had yet to make a move. At this moment, he suddenly realized that the soldiers in the distance were carrying the corpses of the dead soldiers and flying towards Cosmos Emperor. Your Majesty, what are they doing? Kyoto felt that he could take action in this aspect, so he pointed at them and said, "There's a resurrection altar on Cosmos Emperor. They brought the dead soldiers to revive." Zhou took a look and shook his head with a smile. These guys fight like lunatics. They clearly have free revival opportunities, but they still died more than twice. It's to the extent that they have to use the resurrection altar to revive. Resurrection altar? Kyoto thought for a moment and said, "Is it the resurrection altar created by Your Excellency Tritis?" "That's right." Zhou nodded. Kyoto was indeed one of the most knowledgeable existences in the myriad worlds. He had actually guessed that it was the goddess of life just by hearing him say that. As far as I know, using this resurrection altar seems to require extremely rare faith nerves to use. Could it be that Your Majesty wants to use a huge amount of faith nerves to revive these fallen soldiers? Kyoto asked. Of course. Zhou nodded. They are all this emperor's soldiers. How can this emperor watch them die? Your Excellency Kyoto, you've just arrived in the Blazing Sun Empire, so you might not be aware of it. Our soldiers have always been like this. If they die, they'll be resurrected. This kind of thing has been happening for a long time. Among the soldiers under this emperor, there are many talented people who have died dozens or hundreds of times. Currently, they are all still alive and well. Many soldiers have even become god spirits in this kind of life and death tempering. It's precisely because of this resurrection method that this emperor has maintained a zero mortality rate in the war for a long time. At the end, Zhou Zhou's expression was rather arrogant. He rarely showed such an expression to outsiders. However, when it came to the zero mortality rate in war, he was rather pleased with himself. This was indeed something to be proud of. A lord like him, who could maintain a zero mortality rate, was probably unprecedented. There shouldn't be anyone like him in the future. After Kyoto heard Zhou Zhou's words, a hint of shock finally appeared on his usually calm and indifferent expression. The zero mortality rate of war that had been maintained for a long time. Let alone hearing about such a thing, he didn't even dare to think about it. Among all the lord factions, he knew, there was no lord faction that could create a record of 0 deaths in war, because this was simply an impossible record. How could no one die in a war? This was common knowledge that all the lords knew. Even the goddess of life and the master god-tier of death, who controlled the 2 laws of life and death, would definitely not be able to do such a thing. The lord in front of him, no, the common people's regal, had done it. After a long silence, he suddenly had a flash of light in his eyes. He slowly asked, then, doesn't that mean that the subjects in His Majesty's territory have never experienced the tragedy of a broken family because of war? That's true. Zhou Zhou said with a faint smile, as though this was an extremely ordinary matter for him. Furthermore, because our army has a good reputation, good treatment, and a sense of security and honor, countless subjects in the country are crazy about joining the army. Even women, children, and the elderly, these subjects who are not suitable to participate in the war, want to join the army and fight for our blazing sun empire. To our enemies, combat is an incomparably terrifying nightmare. But to our subjects, war. They are never afraid. They even want to participate enthusiastically. Then did they join? Kyoto asked. The smile on Zhou Zhou's face gradually faded. He said indifferently, the young men of the Blazing Sun Empire aren't dead yet. It's not their turn to join. War is ultimately a bad thing. Our Blazing Sun Empire is just a special example. The living beings in other places in the myriad worlds are still in deep trouble because of the war. One day, this emperor hopes that this emperor can personally end this war. When he stated this last sentence, Zhou Zhou's voice was very low, as if he was talking to himself. Then what will happen to His Majesty's undead army after this war that affects the myriad worlds ends? Kyoto seemed to have sensed something and asked. If the myriad worlds really welcome peace, I will disband the soldiers under my command, or even disband my empire. A smile appeared on Zhou Zhou's face. He seemed to have thought of this long ago. I will give my soldiers, generals, heroes, and god spirits sufficient pensions and guarantees. Then, I will let them do whatever they want. Yes, the premise is that they don't harm the world. In short, if the combat ends, they should welcome their own lives and not follow me as their master and continue to do things for me. They should have their own lives, their own dreams, their own families, their own lives. It's not like now, where we're forced into the maelstrom of war. As for me, I'll live with my wife, play games with Zhou Qingmin, travel around the world with Wu Tu, see all kinds of customs in the myriad worlds, and many other things. That will definitely be very interesting. Kyoto looked at Zhou Zhou, who was smiling to himself, and could not help but be stunned. After a long time. Only then did he come back to his senses. After thinking for a long time, he opened the wordless book in his hand and wrote these lines of words on the first page. Preface by editor, the common people's regal is the strongest, most handsome, most special, and strangest lord I've ever seen. He doesn't like war, but he has become the king of war of the new era. He loves his wife, but he rarely meets his wife. While he likes to play games, he rarely touches them on weekdays, and yet he has a huge virtual game empire under his command. He wants to see the customs of all the races in the world, but he stays in his imperial capital every day, guarding his subjects and territory. He has everything that other living beings envy, but it also seems to be very far away from what he has. This common people's regal has stirred up endless killings. It's normal for he to be exterminated, but in his country, it's a piece of peace and prosperity. Everyone seems to live in a paradise. He hopes to end this endless combat between worlds. This wish was something that those high and mighty old lord factions couldn't achieve even after scheming for countless years. However, this human lord who had been in the high continent for less than a year, had stated it firmly. What does he seem to be carrying? Perhaps it's his desire, or the responsibility of an emperor, or the innocent gaze of an innocent child oppressed by combat by the roadside, or perhaps something else. The Time Divine Dragon, Kyoto, will record all of this with the brush of time and present it to myself and the readers. Chapter 1247 Time Divine Dragon, Kyoto Strikes. Super large-scale time reversal. Kyoto closed the book after he finished writing the editor's introduction. What followed was the main text. He had to think carefully before writing. He looked up at Zhou with a faint smile. He was getting more and more interested in this common people's regal who had a close relationship with the dragons. He was just being entrusted by a good friend to help him write an autobiography for common people's regal before he arrived. Now, he really wanted to see the future of this existence. Could such a human regal, who was filled with childish dreams, really do what he wanted to do and become the person he wanted to do? The Time Divine Dragon was interested to know. Actually, whether it was childish or not depended on the facts. If someone said it but couldn't achieve it, then one could be said to be childish. However, if someone not only said it out loud, but also did it, then no matter how naive and unbelievable this matter was, that person would be looked up to. However, Kyoto didn't forget his business. Your Majesty, I can actually contribute to the resurrecting of the soldiers. Kyoto pointed at the corpses of the dead soldiers and said with a smile. This emperor would naturally be more than happy if your excellency can make a move. Zhou was stunned for a moment before smiling. Naturally, he trusted his excellency's words. According to the records of the dragon bloodline in his body, it was said that he had even done a magnificent feat of reviving a legendary dragon. In terms of resurrection ability, he was not much inferior to the two master god tiers of life and death. Kyoto nodded and flew above the Blue Dew Scarlet Empire and Cosmos Emperor. When Zhou saw this, he also ordered the soldiers who were carrying the corpses to put them down. The soldiers immediately put down the corpses of their comrades and waited for further orders. Kyoto could not help but praise in his heart when he saw this. What a disciplined army! Then, his expression turned serious as he silently chanted a spell. A miraculous river that reflected countless spacetime phantoms and spanned the spacetime of various worlds quietly reappeared from space as a low, complicated, and mysterious incantation was being chanted by Kyoto. Surrounding this magnificent river was a boundless red floating continent. Long River of Time and Space, Eternal Mainland, legendary tier spacetime divine dragon was born in the long river of time and space. It should be true. Zhou muttered to himself when he saw this scene. Speaking of which, after the river of time and space and the eternal continent appeared, the river of time and space began to flow slowly in the eternal continent, as if what Kyoto summoned was not a phantom but a real existence. At this moment, the incantation in Kyoto's mouth suddenly became hurried and high. The next second, something that shocked countless life forms happened. The river of time and space actually began to flow back slowly under Kyoto's incantation. Even though it only flowed in reverse for a moment, it still produced a large amount of power of time and space at that moment. This power of time and space descended within a radius of billions of kilometers of the Blue Dew Scarlet Empire. Within this range of billions of kilometers, all the dead soldiers were resurrected in the blink of an eye. The injuries on the injured soldiers quickly reversed until their injuries disappeared. Even the terrain that had been changed because of the war and the buildings that had been destroyed were reversed in time and quickly returned to normal. Moreover, the power of time and space had a selective recovery. For example, the Scarlet soldiers killed by the Blazing Sun Empire's soldiers did not recover with the flow of time. They were still in a state of death. Seeing that everything had recovered, Kyoto chuckled and stopped casting. Then, he said to Zhou, "I hope your majesty is satisfied." "I'm satisfied. I can't be more satisfied." Zhou looked at Kyoto in surprise. This time reversal not only revived his soldiers, but also restored all the buildings damaged by the war. Now, they could directly send residents and professionals to the capital of the Blue Dew Scarlet Empire. They didn't even need to do any repair work. This saved them a lot of trouble. It had to be known that for the victors of the war, restoring the damaged city facilities after the war was the most troublesome and expensive thing. Even Zhou was no exception. He didn't care about spending money. What he cared about was that repairing the damaged city's facilities would consume some manpower and time. Now that the spacetime divine dragon was here, this problem did not exist. He secretly sized up Your Excellency Kyoto and realized that he didn't seem to have expended any energy at all after using this time reversal. Zhou clicked his tongue. This Your Excellency's attainments in the law of time were much more terrifying than he had imagined. Your Excellency, how many times can you use such an extended nomological skill in a day? Zhou asked. It's just going against the flow of moment within a radius of billions of miles. For me, I can use it however many times I want in a day. Kyoto smiled faintly and said, I can reverse time in a boundless universe at best. To me, it's very easy to use this small time reversal dozens or hundreds of times a day. Your Majesty, don't worry. He was being humble. One of the things he often did was also his greatest ability was to travel through various timelines and even restart the entire world's timeline to reach the time point he wanted. Even though the worlds where those timelines were located were all subsidiary small universes that were attached to the supreme great cosmos and could produce countless lives and deaths in the moment frame of a thought, it was still an astonishing method that many true god tier were far from being capable to do. That's great, Zhou uttered with a smile. In that case, Your Excellency, please follow the army and use this time reversal law skill after the war. This law skill is very significant to our Blazing Sun Empire. I'm already Your Majesty's subject. Your Majesty, you don't have to be so polite. Just give me your orders. Kyoto chuckled. He naturally did not forget that although this humble common people's regal in front of him was young, he already had the combat power of a Lord God tier that was comparable to him. Once the two of them fought, even if he had many means, he might not dare say that he would definitely win. Coupled with his current identity as Zhou's subject, he truly treated Zhou as his majesty. Zhou understood Kyoto's meaning. He thought for a moment and nodded. After a while, after cleaning up the battlefield, Zhou thought for a moment. In order to let the Lords of the Star Alliance use their insight defection as rapidly as possible, he simply divided the 6 trillion plus troops into more than 300 groups. He let the Lords of the Star Alliance each lead more than 2 trillion soldiers and their own troops to the enemy forces around the Blazing Sun Empire's territory to carry out a separate insight defection. This way, he should be capable to use his insight defection in the shortest moment possible. When Zhou thought of this, he immediately sent troops to convey his thoughts. In a short while, the Blazing Sun Empire's army split into more than 300 troops and headed to the various borders to oppose the lords. This method was indeed extremely efficient. In less than an hour, all the Star Alliance masters successfully instigated the insight defection and returned with the soldiers. Chapter 1248 Mythical Tier, the only Lord Talent, god of agriculture, Shinnan's blessing. After some calculations, they had brought back about 120 billion scarlet soldiers, 625 god spirits, and 12 true god tiers. The benefits this time could be said to be far inferior to the insight defection results obtained by the Scarlet Army that had previously instigated Aus. However, Zhou Zhou was not surprised. How could the scattered soldiers around the Blazing Sun Empire compare to Aus' Scarlet Alliance army? Moreover, the Scarlet Alliance army that he had just defeated was the vast majority of the troops that they had gathered. After sending out these troops, there weren't many left in their respective countries. It was already beyond his expectations that he could instigate incite defection to gather so many scarlet soldiers and scarlet god spirits. It was already late at night. Although Zhou Zhou's army was no longer afraid of the scarlet fog at night due to the Lord Talent of the scarlet natural enemy, in order to let the soldiers rest and adjust, Zhou Zhou still brought them back to the Blazing Sun Empire to continue the battle tomorrow. In the Blazing Sun Imperial capital. After Zhou Zhou returned, he immediately went to the shrine and turned his attention to Zhou fight on Cerulean planet. Then, he learned that after Zhou fight conquered true God Heron and the lords of the Wind Spirit race, he conquered 3 true God-tier lord factions and a total of 112 lord factions. He obtained a total of 310,600,000 hegemony points and 154,200 obscure lord shop points. The 3 true God-tier lord factions that had the protection of true gods contributed the most hegemony points. The 3 true God-tier lord factions alone contributed a total of 300 million hegemony points. The remaining 106,000 hegemony points were contributed by the lords of the myriad races. As for the obscure lord shop points, all the factions contributed similarly. It could be seen that the hidden shop points did not value the strength of the enemy faction that they conquered. What they valued more was the number of enemies they conquered. In the following period of time, Zhou Fight and the rest did not plan to rest either. Instead, they prepared to continue attacking all the surrounding lord factions. This was because the active universe that Zhou Fight was in was a new super-large boundless universe created by the Supreme Will. For the time being, there was no threat of the Scarlet Fog. Therefore, be it Zhou Fight or the lords of the other races, they would obviously not let go of this good opportunity to develop at night. The other lords who should fight for the first stage of the lord of the race continued to fight for this position. Zhou Fight naturally took advantage of this time to continue to conquer the enemy forces and accumulate hegemony points and obscure lord shop points. Zhou Zhou naturally agreed to Zhou Fight's idea. Then, he chatted with Zhou Zhan for a while. He mainly wanted Zhou Fight to pay attention to collecting spacetime elemental gems so that the Blazing Sun Empire on the High Continent could advance. Then, he cut off the connection. Following that, Zhou Zhou entered the world of reincarnation and continued to comprehend the Lord's laws. He had to raise his strength to the true God-tier level as soon as possible. At that time, Zhou Zhou's personal strength would undergo a qualitative change. Even without using the power of the Moon Demon or the power Heavenly Emperor, he could rely on his law skill, King, to possess true Master God-tier combat strength. In addition, the power Heavenly Emperor, the Supreme Sacred Body, the Master God-tier Divine Artifact, and many other aspects had enhanced his strength. When the time came, he was even confident that he would not be defeated by the 10 Master God-tier existences. Time flew by. Words soon appeared. They arrived the next day. In the Reincarnation Sacred Palace, Zhou Zhou opened his eyes. He sensed his Supreme Sacred Body and frowned slightly. After exhausting all the Lord Talent Crystal Fragments and Lord Talent Spheres, the progress of upgrading the intermediate True God-tier Supreme Sacred Body to an advanced True God-tier Supreme Sacred Body has only increased by half. Looks like I still need 2 days to raise the Supreme Sacred Body to the level of a true God-tier advanced grade. I really hope to reach the low-level Master God-tier Supreme Sacred Body as soon as possible. When the time comes, I should be invincible among Master God-tier. Even if the 10 Master God tiers attack me together, they won't be able to do anything to me. Zhou Zhou was filled with anticipation. Then, he looked at the new Lord Talent that he had awakened during his cultivation. As expected, it was also the mythical tier 1 and only Lord Talent. Lord Talent, God of Agriculture, Shinan's Blessing, mythical tier, unique, Talent Effect 1, Blessing of the God of Agriculture, your territory is blessed by the God of Agriculture, Nong Shi. In your territory, the production of all crops will increase by 10,000%. All agricultural lifestyle professionals can obtain promotion energy by planting and harvesting crops. The promotion energy obtained will also increase by 10,000%. Talent Effect 2, God Tier Cultivation. The agricultural lifestyle professionals in your territory have a 5% chance of cultivating crops with +1 quality when cultivating agricultural crops. There is a 1% chance of cultivating crops with +1 quality and benign mutations. Talent Effect 3, Son of Agriculture. When you and the agricultural lifestyle professionals under you reach the limit of your potential, you can break through the limit of your potential and reach a new profession realm by focusing on agricultural theory and practical knowledge. Talent Effect 4, Food is the priority of the people. Any living being who eats the crops produced in your territory will experience the feeling of happiness from it, greatly increasing the probability of them eating it multiple times. Specific Talent Effect 5, Master God's Protection. The development process of your Lord's faction will not be hindered by other Master God level powerhouses. The Machina God, 0, will secretly protect you and your Lord's faction, stopping or killing any Master God level powerhouses who dare to come and have malicious intentions. Specific Talent Effect 6, Protector of the Divine Kingdom. When your Lord's faction advances to the beginner level Divine Kingdom, the God of Agriculture, Shinan, will automatically join your Lord's faction and become a loyal worshipper of your Master God tier. However, you have to promise him that you will let he join the battlefield as little as possible and have your own time to study the upper limit of agricultural development. After reading it, Zhou Zhou raised his eyebrows slightly. Then, he muttered to himself in puzzlement. I don't remember the God of Agriculture, Shinan, being one of the 10 Master Gods. Even though the God of Agriculture, Shinan, is also a high-level Master God, and is also a God blessed by the heavens, he is considered to be the weakest among all the Master God tier advanced grade God spirits. He can't join the ranks of the top 10 Master Gods at all. In addition, this God of Agriculture's requirements are low enough. He only wants to join the battlefield as little as possible and give him moment to study the upper limit of agricultural development. He doesn't want to advance to the supreme God realm at all. As he who possessed many bloodline inheritances, he naturally knew who the 10 Master God tiers were. They were, the War Master God Terence, the Machina Master God, 0, the God of Death, Thanatos, the Goddess of Life, Tritis, the Wisdom Master God, Tot Birth, the Master God of Light, Hilu, the Original Master God tier, Source, the Primordial Dragon, First Venerable, the King of All Gods, Di Huang, the Chaotic Beast God, Heaven Curse Beast. There was no God of Agriculture, Shinan among them. Wait, there's indeed no prefix of the 10 sacred blessings in the prefix of this Lord Talent name. Could there be other Lord Talents, other than the 10 God series of Lord Talents that possess other God Spirits' blessings? Zhou Zhou had a guess. He thought for a moment and guessed that he became right. This became because when he was looking at the Lord Talent list of the Star Alliance Masters, he had indeed seen some Lord Talents that were blessed by God Spirits. However, most of their grades were Black Iron tier, Green Bronze tier, and White Silver tier. They did not even have the Yellow Gold tier Lord Talent. In addition, their talent effects were very ordinary, so Zhou Zhou subconsciously ignored them. Only today, when he noticed this mythical tier unique Lord Talent, did he remember. Zhou Zhou did not hesitate. Just as he became about to leave the Reincarnation Sacred Palace to recruit new soldiers, Nadia arrived up and told he a piece of news. The blood moon sun became back. Chapter 1249 The first worshipped quasi-master god, Blood Moon Sun. The Blazing Sun Empire, Imperial Palace. Zhou Zhou sat on the throne and looked at the blood moon sun below with a faint smile. What have you been doing these past few days? Did you learn anything? Your Majesty, I haven't found the opportunity to restore my Master God tier strength yet. However, I accidentally bumped into a few Titan true God tiers, so I took care of them along the way. It can be considered as repaying some of the interest that the Titans owe me. The blood moon sun shook his head and said. Zhou Zhou smiled. Even the Titan god race would find it troublesome to be targeted by a main god-level expert whose strength had fallen to the true god-tier realm. When the blood moon sun recovered to the level of a master god tier one day, even the Titan god race would have to take the blood moon sun seriously. A master god-level expert could be considered a top-notch expert even in the Titan god race after all. Any top bloodline race would not dare to underestimate such an expert. Have you considered the message this emperor sent you previously? Even though Zhou Zhou had already guessed the answer to this question, he still had to go through the process of asking. Your Excellency Regal is willing to look up to the blood moon sun and doesn't mind his troubles. The blood moon sun is more than grateful to your Excellency for taking him in, so why would he refuse? Blood moon sun greets your Majesty. The blood moon sun said respectfully. You have to think carefully. The only enemy you're facing now is the Titan god race. But if you join this emperor's camp, the original spirit race, the shepherd's god race, the chaos gods race, and other top bloodline races will all view you as an enemy. At that time, you will only be in more trouble. Zhou Zhou smiled at the blood moon sun. I actually feel that there's not much difference between offending one Titan god race and offending more top-notch bloodline races. Most importantly, I feel that your Majesty's Blazing Sun Empire is worth joining. Your Majesty is also worthy of my loyalty. That's why I want to join. I didn't have to. In addition, many races now think that a new era is about to begin because of His Majesty's appearance. Perhaps in the future, those top bloodline races will be wiped out by His Majesty. Speaking of which, Your Majesty, you also know that I was killed by a top bloodline race like the Titan God race back then. Actually, I've long been unhappy with those high and mighty races who think that they're the masters of the endless heavens. If your Majesty really intends to destroy those top bloodline races, especially when it comes to the Titan God race, I'm willing to do my best to be your Majesty's vanguard. The blood moon sun said seriously. His tone contained astonishing resentment. It could be seen that he hated the Titan God race, who had killed he until he only had a remnant of his will. Okay. This emperor agrees to your request. Zhou Zhou stood up from his throne and agreed to the blood moon sun with a smile. After what happened between Uriel and Yuzanda, Zhou Zhou knew that there was basically no possibility of reconciliation between him and the Titan God race. Either him or Zhou Zhou would survive. Since that was the case, naturally, Zhou Zhou would not choose to die himself. Then, he could only ask the threat of the Titan God race to disappear from the forest of races after he completely rose. From now on, you will be this emperor's first worshipped quasi-master god tier. All of your treatment is the same as that of a worshipped master god. It's just that there's the word quasi in your rank. After you completely recover your master god tier strength, you can remove this quasi word and become the true worshipped master god of the Blazing Sun Empire. Zhou Zhou asked. Thank you, Your Majesty. The blood moon sun was moved and said excitedly. He never expected that His Excellency, the common people's regal, would be ready to treat him as a worshipped master god before he even regained his powers. How much trust did he have in him? At this moment, the blood moon sun felt ashamed of the bad guess he had made about Zhou Zhou's intention of inviting him over. According to tradition, if a worshipped true god joins our country, this emperor will give them a true god-tier divine artifact and lend them 5 true god-tier divine artifacts from other positions. You are the first quasi-worshipped master god in our country. Even though you currently have the power of a top true god tier, this emperor also intends to give you a master god tier divine artifact. This way, when you recover your master god tier strength in the future, you can use it directly. Take a look. After Zhou Zhou finished speaking, a world ring appeared in front of the Blood Moon Sun with a thought. The Blood Moon Sun did not take it immediately but looked at Zhou Zhou in a daze. What did he just hear? His Majesty was going to give him Master God tier divine artifacts. His Majesty must be joking, right? Master God tier divine artifacts. The vast majority of Master God tiers did not possess a single Master God tier divine artifact. Even the premier Master God tier existences like the 10 Master God tiers only had 1 or 2 Master God tier divine artifacts on them at most. Then, they would use them together with true God tier divine artifacts. The vast majority of Master God tiers did not possess a single Master God tier divine artifact. Even the premier Master God tier existences like the 10 Master God tiers only had 1 or 2 Master God tier divine artifacts on them at most. Then, they would use them together with true God tier divine artifacts. His Majesty actually spoke that he would give such a divine artifact to him. He was stunned for a while before he came back to his senses. He received the ring with a trembling hand and looked inside. Then, he was stunned. This was because this world ring was actually a boundless universe-level world ring. In this world ring, were 7 divine artifacts. 6 of them were true divine artifacts that could form a set of divine artifacts. What surprised him was that the attributes of these 6 true God-tier divine artifacts happened to be Yin-type true God-tier divine artifacts. They were extremely compatible with his law of the moon. It could be spoke that as long as he wore these 6 true God-tier divine artifacts that matched his own law attributes, his combat power would instantly soar by more than 100 times, and he would become the top true God-tier existence among the advanced grade God spirits of true gods. That's not the point. The main point was the divine artifact that was surrounded by the 6 true God-tier divine artifacts. It exuded a Master God-tier divine artifact level pressure that suppressed the surrounding 6 true God-tier divine artifacts, causing them to tremble. He looked like a real great lunar star. It was even slowly changing, from a full moon that emitted a resplendent light to a crescent moon that converged all the light. From bright to dark, from dark to bright, it formed a cycle. A majestic aura of laws emanated from its body. The Blood Moon Sun could not help but hold his breath when he saw the moon. His eyes were filled with shock. Master God-tier divine artifact. It really is a Master God-tier divine artifact. Even the 10 great Master God-tier existences would go crazy over such a Master God-tier divine artifact, right? The Blood Moon Sun muttered. He still did not know that the common people's regal in front of him had just sent 3 of the 10 Master God-tier existences several Master God-tier divine artifacts not long ago, allowing them to return with a full harvest. Compared to the Master God-tier advanced grade Master God divine artifact they had obtained, the Master God-tier elementary grade divine artifact in front of him, the illusory moon sacred ring, was actually only pretty ordinary. However, it was also this ordinary divine artifact that gave the Blood Moon Sun a huge shock. Chapter 1250 Summoning the Dragon Race Again. Collier called. Your Majesty, is this really for me? The Blood Moon Sun could not believe it and was still doubting reality. It's in your hands. Why don't you believe me? Zhou Zhou smiled and said, however, you can't use this Master God-tier divine artifact yet. Leave it in the world rings for now. When you recover your strength and can use it again, you can take it out. Thank you, Your Majesty. Zhou Zhou smiled and said, however, you can't use this Master God-tier divine artifact yet. Leave it in the world rings for now. When you recover your strength and can use it again, you can take it out. A text notification that the Blood Moon Sun's loyalty had skyrocketed appeared in front of Zhou. However, he was used to it and no longer cared. By the way, tell this emperor what divine medicine you need to recover your strength. Zhou turned to ask this question. Okay. When the Blood Moon Sun heard this, he did not hide anything and told him all the divine medicines he needed. He even mentioned some low-level and high-level substitutes. After saying that, he hesitated for a moment. If I don't use the divine herbs at the true God tier level, I can use the high-level divine herbs at the Master God tier level to replace them. Coupled with an array formation that has 10 times the speed of time, I can recover my full strength in 7 days. A substitute for a Master God tier high-level divine medicine, right? Zhou thought for a moment and opened his king's treasure box to take a look. Now, his king's treasure box could be considered a true king's treasure box. Countless treasures piled up like mountains were stored in the huge deathly demiplane. It even felt like it was overflowing. The weakest among them were special grade treasures, and the most common ones were true God tier treasures. Even the smallest number of Master God tier treasures could be described as a vast amount. As for treasures below the high tier deity level, they weren't even qualified to enter his king's treasury. Zhou picked and chose. From the treasures at the Master God tier level, he easily found the 7 divine herbs that the Blood Moon Sun needed. These 7 divine herbs were not even unique. With the enhancement of the Lord talent and title, there were hundreds of each divine herb. Zhou casually put them into a Master God tier world rings and prepared to hand them to the Blood Moon Sun. As for why they had to use Master God tier world rings, it was mainly because only spatial items of this level could store Master God tier treasures. Otherwise, if they were to exchange for true God tier or even lower level world rings and forcefully put in Master God tier items, this world ring would explode in minutes. Then, he looked at the sea of treasures that was about to fill the entire half-plane and could not help but fall into deep thought. Speaking of which, my king's treasure box seems a little small. I hope that the next time the Supreme Sacred Body awakens a new mythical tier 1 Lord talent, other than the Lord talent of the 10 God series, it will help me upgrade the king's treasure box. Zhou muttered in his heart. Not only would the Supreme Sacred Body change according to the environment, the corresponding Lord talent would also be produced according to the needs of the owner of the Supreme Sacred Body. Therefore, even though Zhou seemed to be talking to himself, he was actually discussing his needs with the Supreme Sacred Body. Then, his consciousness returned to the present world. He then threw the world ring containing the divine medicine to the Blood Moon Sun. Thank you, Your Majesty. The Blood Moon Sun caught it respectfully and entered it with his consciousness. The first thing he saw was the Master God tier divine medicine. The Blood Moon Sun was dumbfounded. They were really giving Master God tier level divine medicine. Were Master God tier treasures so common in this world? He looked at His Majesty in disbelief. What kind of existence was His Majesty? How could he casually take out so many Master God tier treasures? Could it be that on the surface, His Majesty was a lord of all races, but in reality, he was a certain supreme god realm or even a will existence who had come to the lower realm to play? When Zhou saw that the Blood Moon Sun still wanted to say something, he waved his hand. You can leave first and recover your strength. When you recover your strength, it won't be too late to fight with me. Yes. The Blood Moon Sun opened his mouth, but in the end, he left with a stomach full of shock and guesses. After the Blood Moon Sun left, Zhou flew out of the palace and came to Mugu, waiting for Wuxia to come out. After chatting for a while, a golden stream of light flew out of the Scarlet Broodmother and landed in front of Zhou. The Legion Commander of the Homeland Defense Army, Wuxia, greets His Majesty. Emicham. Zhou nodded. Is everything settled? Your Majesty, please take a look. Wuxia said. Then, he unveiled his palm and saw 3 rings lying quietly on his palm. Zhou Zhou took a look and nodded. Then, he took the 2 world rings containing the loots and recruitment books and left the last one for Wuxia. This emperor will go to the gate of summoning to recruit new recruits. Go to the recruit team and use the 240 trillion class change certificates. Zhou Zhou asked. Yes, Your Majesty. Wuxia said respectfully. When Zhou Zhou saw this, he turned into a stream of light and left. Wuxia followed closely behind. In front of the gate of summoning, Zhou Zhou communicated with the world rings in his hand and threw all 240 trillion recruitment books into the gate of summoning. Then, he spent 100 mid-tier deity-level intermediate-grade divine crystals to summon 240 trillion new recruits in one go. After getting 0 to arrange these new recruits, Zhou Zhou began to summon normally again. In the end, he summoned a total of 22,123,655 people, including 11 god spirits. He summoned 468,655 more people than usual. After getting the staff to arrange for these new subjects, Zhou Zhou took a deep breath and began to summon the original dragon abyss. Words soon appeared. 66,666,666 pure-blooded dragons instantly appeared on Cosmos Emperor as a dark purple light lit up in the gate of summoning. From the green bronze tier elementary grade fire dragon to the mid-tier deity-level intermediate sacred fire dragon god, as well as various other pure-blooded dragons, they could be said to have everything. However, after Zhou Zhou looked around, his expression turned regretful. This was because he didn't see the legendary dragons. What a pity, there's a 10% chance that we didn't encounter it. Zhou Zhou shook his head. Could it be that the first time he summoned the Time Divine Dragon was a benefit for newcomers? Zhou Zhou didn't think too much about not summoning the legendary dragon. After sensing regretful for a while, he didn't care anymore. He then arrived to the Lord's shop to see what the goods were like. In the end, the goods today were so-so. Zhou Zhou took a look and lost interest. The products these few days are not good, old Zhou. Zhou Zhou could not help but complain. Your Majesty, your standards are too high. Zhou Qingmin smiled bitterly, helpless against His Majesty's complaints. The Lord's shop was gradually unable to satisfy his needs as this Lord's level increased. Zhou Zhou was stunned. Then, he shook his head helplessly. Well, to the current him, as long as one was at the true God tier or below, they could be considered average. Only Master God tier or Supreme God realm treasures could catch his eye. Even though the Lord's shop was the only mythical tier Lord talent, his upper limit was only the Master God tier. Zhou Zhou was no longer in short supply of goods at this level. I have to quickly create a Master God tier Lord talent. I can't stop cultivating the Supreme Sacred Body. Zhou Zhou murmured to himself as he casually purchased these 3 items. Even though he wasn't interested, he was already here. At this moment, a call suddenly appeared on Zhou Zhou's personal terminal. Zhou Zhou was stunned. He took a look and realized that it was from Collier. He selected up the call. Chapter 1251, Master Servant Territory Contract. The call was connected, and Collier's appearance appeared on the virtual screen. Collier greets Your Majesty. Collier said respectfully. What's the matter? Zhou Zhou asked casually. Your Majesty, I have already bought the true God tier Master Servant Territory Contract through another high-level Divine Kingdom Lord faction according to your instructions. Your Majesty, when will we conclude the contract? Zhou Zhou was stunned. He actually managed to buy it in such a short period of time. He thought that it would take a long time even if the other party were to buy it. Zhou Zhou was even prepared to wait for the other party for a while. In any case, there was no hurry to sign a contract. At most, Collier would join the Blazing Sun Empire in his own name and become a subject of the Blazing Sun Empire. This way, he could at least ensure that the loyalty of the other party, the ruler of the Divine Kingdom, would not be a problem. He did not expect Collier to be able to obtain it so quickly. As expected of a Divine Kingdom Lord faction. This foundation and channels were indeed deep. Come here now. Remember to bring all the available troops of your behemoth Divine Kingdom. When the time comes, we'll fight together. Zhou said without hesitation. Yes, Your Majesty. Collier said respectfully. Zhou nodded and hung up. Half an hour later, at the border of the Blazing Sun Empire. A purple behemoth-like biological battleship flew over and stopped outside the border under the warning of the Homeland Defense Legion. Then, a low-tier deity-level amethyst behemoth flew out. He looked at the Homeland Defense Army members who were looking at him warily and said helplessly and respectfully, "We were instructed by His Excellency Common People's Regal to join the Blazing Sun Empire. Please inform His Excellency Common People's Regal that we have arrived at the border and are waiting for His Excellency's orders at any time. You want to join our Blazing Sun Empire?" The defending troops at the border were enlightened when they heard this, but they did not look surprised. Ever since the Blazing Sun Empire's reputation resounded throughout the myriad worlds, they had seen many lord factions and even race factions that wanted to rely on them. Some lord factions and races even came from other worlds and crossed countless light years to the high continent to join the Blazing Sun Empire. In the beginning, they were quite proud and novel, but as time passed, they got used to it. So your friends who want to join the Empire. Wait here for a moment. I'll report it to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs immediately. Oh right, which lord's faction or race are you from? So your friends who want to join the Empire. Wait here for a moment. I'll report it to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs immediately. Oh right, which lord's faction or race are you from? We are the Lord faction of the beginner-level Divine Kingdom, the Behemoth Divine Kingdom. I am the Holy Son of the Divine Kingdom, Bartoli. My father is Collier, the Lord of the Divine Kingdom. Bartoli said proudly. Then, he felt very depressed. As the eldest son of the dignified Lord of the Divine Kingdom of the Behemoth Divine Kingdom, Collier, and the Holy Son of the huge Divine Kingdom, he usually had a respected status. Countless subjects dreamed of currying favor with him. When has he ever done such a humiliating thing? He really didn't want to appear here if he had a choice. However, he still came over obediently when he thought of his father's firm attitude wanting to change out his position of the Holy Son of the Divine Kingdom if he was unwilling. I wonder what father is thinking. It's true that the common people's regal is powerful, but there's no need to rush to give yourself to him, right? We're a Divine Kingdom Lord faction, but we actually took the initiative to surrender to an Empire-tier Lord faction and even want to become their subordinate territory. This can be said to be the first time in history. Our behemoth Divine Kingdom is probably going to be nailed to the pillar of shame in the history of the heavens. The Crown Prince of the behemoth Divine Kingdom felt extremely complicated, but he could not make any changes. He understood his father's stubbornness very well. He felt that even if he threatened to die, he probably wouldn't be able to change the will of the founding king. What else could he do? He could only accept reality. Alright, Divine Kingdom, right. What? Divine Kingdom? The captain of the garrison and the others didn't react at first. When he reacted, he couldn't help but be shocked. The captain of the garrison and the others didn't react at first. When he reacted, he couldn't help but be shocked. This is very rare. No, this is probably the first time in history, right? He, who had once been fortunate enough to read the history of the worlds in the myriad races inheritance tower, could not help but think. Then, he verified Bartoli's identity in disbelief. After confirming it again, he immediately sent a message to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs excitedly. Soon, Someone from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs came and brought Bartoli and their true God-tier biological battleships to the capital. Our blazing sun empire is really getting stronger and stronger. The best thing I did in my life was to bring my family here to settle down. The captain of the garrison looked at the departing biological warship and smiled. In the blazing sun imperial capital, at the central emperor palace, Zhou Zhou sat on the throne and looked at the true god-tier master-servant territory contract in his hand. He looked it up and down before nodding slightly. Then, he looked at Collier not far away and said, "In that case, this emperor won't say anything else. Prepare to become this emperor's subordinate territory. Don't worry. Since you chose to bring your behemoth divine kingdom and join this emperor's blazing sun empire, this emperor naturally won't let you down." Zhou Zhou said. "Thank you, your majesty. However, I joined the blazing sun empire only to follow your majesty. I wish for nothing," Collier said respectfully. Zhou Zhou pretended not to hear it. Then, he looked at the master-servant territory contract in his hand and chanted in his heart. "Please choose the lord you want to sign the master-servant territory contract with. Behemoth Divine Kingdom, Lord Behemoth." A request for a master-servant territory contract has been sent to the Behemoth Divine Kingdom, Lord Behemoth. Please wait patiently. Zhou Zhou looked at Collier. Collier also saw the text prompt that appeared in front of him, and knew that once he confirmed it, he would become the first lord of the Divine Kingdom to have a Divine Kingdom Lord Force sign a master-servant territory contract with an Empire-tier Lord Force. However, he didn't hesitate at all and chose to confirm it. The next second, a text notification appeared in front of Zhou Zhou. Behemoth Divine Kingdom, Behemoth Lord has agreed to your master territory contract application and officially become your subordinate territory. New subordinate territory has been added to your subordinate territory column, Behemoth Divine Kingdom, Beginner Level Divine Kingdom Lord Faction. You have the sovereignty of the Behemoth Divine Kingdom's territory. The king of the Behemoth Divine Kingdom and its subjects cannot disobey your orders as the lord of the main territory. At the same time, as the lord of the main territory, you also have to bear the responsibility of protecting your subordinate territory. You have added a special building to your territory, a cross-border teleportation array, true god-level elementary grade. You can choose to share the effect of your lord talent with your subordinate territory. Chapter 1252, The Monster Demon Clan. At this moment, Zhou Zhou and Collier both felt a sense of connection between them. It wasn't just them. Collier's son, Bartoli, and the other ministers of the Behemoth Divine Kingdom who had come felt the majesty on Zhou Zhou's body inexplicably become heavier at this moment, making them involuntarily feel subservient. From now on, we are a real family. Zhou Zhou finally revealed a sincere smile. After signing the master-servant territory contract, the other party was considered one of them. Yes, your majesty. Collier also smiled in relief. Then, he was suddenly alarmed as he sensed his divine body in shock. This was because he could actually sense that his potential, which was originally true god-tier advanced grade, had actually increased rapidly at this moment. In a short while, he had crossed the threshold of the Master God tier and reached the level of the Master God tier's potential. Moreover, this did not stop until his potential reached the Master God tier advanced grade. This increase in potential finally stopped. This, Collier was dumbfounded. He was both surprised and terrified. What is going on? He subconsciously looked at Bartoli, the child he valued the most, and realized that Bartoli's expression was similar to his. Father, my potential seems to have increased to the true God tier advanced grade. Bartoli said to Collier in surprise after his potential increased. True God tier advanced grade, Collier was in a daze. He knew his son who originally only had the potential of a high-tier deity-level advanced grade. While it was only a step away from the true God tier potential, this step was the difference between heaven and earth. Many amethyst behemoth ministers in the Divine Kingdom were dissatisfied with the potential of the Holy Son of the Divine Kingdom. They believed that he was not worthy of inheriting the behemoth Divine Kingdom with his potential. Collier had been worried about this. However, he only had one son with the amethyst behemoth bloodline. The most powerful one was a yellow gold tier behemoth, so he was even less qualified. Unexpectedly, the problem that had troubled he for a long time had mysteriously disappeared today. Could it be? At this moment, Collier and his son looked at Zhou Zhou at the same time. The other ministers of the behemoth Divine Kingdom also looked at Zhou Zhou excitedly. Zhou Zhou smiled faintly when he saw this. The increase in your potential is just the first small gift this emperor gave you after you joined the Blazing Sun Empire. Next is the second gift. With that, Zhou Zhou directly shared the legendary tier blessing of the War God with the behemoth Divine Kingdom. The behemoth Divine Kingdom's president immediately understood the power of this Lord Talent and could not help but be dumbfounded again. Oh my God, we can obtain an additional 9,000% promotion energy after killing the enemy? Doesn't this mean that killing one enemy is equivalent to killing 91 enemies? Doesn't this mean that our growth speed is equivalent to directly increasing by 90 times? This Lord Talent is too terrifying. Too shocking. I'm so happy. No wonder His Majesty's Blazing Sun Empire has clearly just risen not long ago. In terms of the average strength of the soldiers, it's already not inferior to those top-notch races. The Beeman ministers discussed excitedly. Collier and Bartoli were no exception. Especially Bartoli, he was behaving very differently from his previous reluctance. Bartoli's eyes lit up as he looked at his father in admiration. His father was really far-sighted. They had actually found such an extremely wise lord who could bring them a bright future. If he had known this earlier, he would have been willing to be a dog, let alone a subordinate territory. Other than what you feel, there are many, many benefits to becoming this emperor's subordinate territory. You might not be able to feel it now, but you will gradually feel it in the future. Zhou Zhou asked. Then, with a wave of his right hand, a world ring flew out and floated in front of Collier. Hey Race, another little gift for you. Take a look. He smiled faintly. Collier took a deep breath and entered the world rings with anticipation. Then, he saw a set of true God-tier divine artifacts that were compatible with his nomological path. Collier clicked his tongue. Even though he had long heard that the god spirits of the Blazing Sun Empire all had a set of true God-tier divine artifacts of their own, hearing about it and experiencing it personally were two completely different feelings. Collier suppressed the excitement in his heart and said gratefully, "Thank you for the divine artifacts, Your Majesty. Work hard for this emperor and I guarantee that you will have the future you dream of." Zhou Zhou said. "Am willing to die for Your Majesty." Collier, Bartoli, and all the officials of the Behemoth Divine Kingdom present said respectfully. A large amount of information about the increase in loyalty appeared in front of Zhou Zhou. He took a look and retracted his gaze. Since the matter is done, let's move on to the next matter. Let's go out and fight. Zhou Zhou said. Your Majesty, who are we waging war against? Collier and the others were extremely excited. If it was in the past, they would never have such a reaction. However, as the saying goes, one has a sharp blade and killing intent arises. Now, be it the increase in their own potential, the enhancement of the War Master God's Lord Talent, or the true God-tier divine artifacts that Collier had just obtained, they all made them have the urge to immediately engage in a huge battle. Zhou Zhou didn't answer. Instead, he asked, Collier, do you have any enemies in the Behemoth Divine Kingdom? Collier was stunned. Then, he subconsciously said, of course it's the dragon race, other than the dragons. Zhou Zhou asked. If it's not the dragons, then it's the monster demon Divine Kingdom Lord faction. Collier's face revealed a trace of hatred. Monster demon. Information about this race naturally appeared in Zhou Zhou's mind. Monster demons. Such monsters were born from the negative emotions of the world's life forms. Coupled with some negative energy items that triggered negative emotions, such a monster could be born. The genes in their bodies were naturally filled with the tyranny of destroying the world. The birth of every monster would bring about a shocking disaster in the world. It was also because of this that in the myriad worlds, they had a name that was more familiar to the life forms of the myriad worlds. That was, monster, or, calamity beast. They were similar to the abyssal creatures, but they were somewhat different. The biggest difference was that no matter how high the bloodline level of the abyssal creatures was, the newly born abyssal demons still needed to grow step by step in the abyss to become god spirits or even stronger. However, monster demons were born strong, and the weakest among them was at the extraordinary tier level. The most powerful monster demon was even born at the master god tier level. However, the most powerful master god tier level monster demon Emperor King had been killed by the combined forces of other master gods not long after he was born. As for whether there were other master god tier monster demons, he did not know yet. The few monster demon lords on the high continent were all established by true god tier monster demons. He thought for a moment and said, "In that case, our target today is your enemy. Divine Kingdom Lord Faction, Monster Demon Divine Kingdom." Chapter 1253 Arriving at the Monster Demon Divine Kingdom. It was quiet in the shrine. Everyone was shocked by Zhou Zhou's order. Even Zheng Yuanqi and the others, who were familiar with His Majesty, were no exception. Should he attack a Divine Kingdom Lord faction? One had to know that they were only an intermediate grade Lord faction. The difference between the two was at the national level. As an intermediate grade empire, it was extremely unlikely to destroy a Divine Kingdom Lord faction, even if that Lord faction was only a beginner-level Divine Kingdom Lord faction. However, when they thought of the Blazing Sun Empire's robust military forces and His Majesty's Master God tier-level combat power, they felt more confident. They had even defeated a terrifying opponent like Aus. It was just a beginner-level Divine Kingdom Lord faction. Normally speaking, a normal beginner-level Divine Kingdom Lord faction that was not newly established would probably have trillions of soldiers, more than 10,000 god spirits, and more than 10 true god tiers. Moreover, they would have a certain amount of Master God tier trump cards. However, what about Zhou Zhou? He now had a total of 1,629,974. 6,091. 47,002,446 soldiers. There were also 3,571,296 god spirits and 1,725 true god tiers. Honestly, with Zhou Zhou's military strength and his Master God tier combat power, it would not be a problem for him to directly attack a high-level Divine Kingdom Lord faction. Fortunately, Zhou Zhou had a stable personality and was unwilling to easily challenge a high-level Divine Kingdom Lord faction that was very likely to be protected by a Master God tier. Otherwise, he would have long attacked a high-level Divine Kingdom Lord faction. At this moment, when Collier and the other ministers of the Behemoth Divine Kingdom heard Zhou Zhou's words, they could not help but be stunned. Then, they looked at Zhou Zhou in disbelief. A thought subconsciously flashed through their minds. "Your Majesty, are you serious about facing a beginner-level Divine Kingdom Lord faction as an intermediate-grade empire?" However, they also thought of Zhou Zhou's strength and the terrifying troops under him. This made them suddenly feel that it wasn't impossible for the Blazing Sun Empire, an intermediate-grade empire, to challenge a beginner Divine Kingdom. "Yes, Your Majesty." Collier didn't dare to hesitate and immediately said respectfully. Zhou Zhou nodded and asked, "How many troops did you bring?" "Reporting to Your Majesty, I brought a total of more than 650 billion soldiers, 111,658 god spirits, and 6 true god tier behemoths." This is all the troops that can go out in our Beeman Divine Kingdom. Collier said respectfully. It's too little. Forget it, let's do it together. Zhou didn't mind and waved his hand. Then, everyone did not waste any time. They immediately gathered the troops that they had long prepared and boarded a Cosmos Emperor. Then, through the cross-border teleportation array given by the Master Servant Territory contract, they first headed to the Behemoth Divine Kingdom before heading to the Strange Demon God Kingdom. The Strange Demon God Kingdom was adjacent to the territory of the Behemoth Divine Kingdom. When the Behemoth Divine Kingdom was at its strongest, the Strange Demon God Kingdom was still the side that the Behemoth Divine Kingdom could casually manipulate. However, later on, the Behemoth Divine Kingdom lost the method to advance its bloodline. After the entire race began to decline, the Behemoth Divine Kingdom gradually began to be controlled by the Monster Demon God Kingdom. Not only were their territories constantly plundered by the Monster Demon God Kingdom, but there were also a large number of monster demons from the Monster Demon God Kingdom who often collectively entered the Behemoth Divine Kingdom and caused terrifying natural and man-made disasters. However, the few racial allies of the Behemoth Divine Kingdom did not help when they saw the Behemoth Divine Kingdom weaken and fall into trouble. They only watched coldly from the side. This made the already precarious situation in the Behemoth Divine Kingdom even more miserable. Therefore, the Beemans hated the monster demons to the core. Later on, as a new bloodline advancement method, the sacred worship ceremony, was developed, more and more amethyst behemoths began to appear. Only then did this situation ease slightly. However, this did not alleviate their hatred for the monster demons. Instead, it made them want revenge even more. When Cosmos Emperor arrived at the periphery of the Demon God Nation's territory, all the Beemans, including Collier, erupted with shocking hatred in their eyes. Master God Tier Monster Demon, Eras, we meet again. Collier gritted his teeth. In the past, he was actually not Bartoli's direct descendant of the Amethyst Behemoth. Instead, he had 5 direct descendants of the Amethyst Behemoth. The potential of one of the direct descendants had even reached the true God Tier advanced grade. He could completely inherit his position as the Master God. At that time, the entire country believed that his son could become the next perfect ruler of the Behemoth Divine Kingdom. In the end, when the other party went out to train, he was ambushed by a monster demon true God Tier from the Demon God Nation and was straightforwardly eaten by the other party. Since that time, Collier's hatred for the monster demon could be described as monstrous. Army soldiers, listen up. Fly out of Cosmos Emperor and prepare for battle. The acting Legion commander of the Blazing Sun Army ordered. He was a true God Tier advanced grade God spirit. At the same time, he was deeply trusted by Bai Yun. After Bai Yun left, the Blazing Sun Army was temporarily under her control. Splash! More than 160 billion soldiers, 3 million God spirits, and more than 1,000 true God Tiers flew out of Cosmos Emperor. With such a terrifying number of extraordinaires and God spirits gathered together, it promptly caused the weather to change, space to tremble, and time to stop. All kinds of illusions of laws appeared around the army. When Collier and the other ministers of the Behemoth Divine Kingdom saw that they had such deep strength, they promptly felt endless confidence. In the face of such a shocking force, what was a small and strange demon god kingdom? Hide most of the soldiers and god spirits. Before the provincial war begins, these monster demons will be scared away. In addition, the hidden soldiers and god spirits can secretly surround the entire monster demon Scarlet Divine Kingdom to prevent any enemies from trying to escape after the war begins. Zhou ordered. The military strength that he controlled was too terrifying. It was far from what a beginner Divine Kingdom could deal with. Moreover, the monster demons were not a race that would defend their territory to the death. In order to prevent them from escaping, Zhou pondered of this method. Yes. The acting commander of the Blazing Sun Army uttered respectfully. Then, he began to give orders again. Soon, most of the soldiers and god spirits of the Blazing Sun Empire had hidden themselves and piloted spaceships to secretly surround and monitor the entire monster god kingdom to prevent any monster demons from escaping during the war. On the Cosmos Emperor's side, there were only more than 3 trillion soldiers, more than 20,000 god spirits, 10 human true god tiers, and 6 behemoth true god tiers. The phenomenon between heaven and earth suddenly weakened greatly. Soon, the monster demon divine kingdom also discovered the phenomenon here. A team of 12 monster demons flew over from afar and stopped far away from the Blazing Sun Empire's army. Zhou looked at it. He realized that most of these monster demons had terrifying appearances and were huge. To ordinary life forms, they were very intimidating. However, it was only so to extraordinaries and god spirits like them. At this moment, this group of monsters was also looking at the army of the Blazing Sun Empire with a savage and greedy expression. Which divine kingdom faction is here? I can sense the auras of many god spirits. I saw the guy from the Behemoth Divine Kingdom. So it's the Behemoth Divine Kingdom. Did these behemoths find help? So what if they find help? Under the leadership of our Emperor Eras, they will still be vulnerable. That's right, but we have to report it to His Majesty immediately. How interesting. Every few hundred years, a group of lords who call themselves righteous people will come to crusade against us with great fanfare. In the end, they were all eaten up by us. Thinking about it, it's really delicious. Don't these helpers invited by the Behemoth Divine Kingdom know the consequences of provoking us, the monster demons? There's a new batch of help. Leave me a batch of behemoth and god spirits to eat when the war starts later. These monster demons commented arrogantly on the army of the Blazing Sun Empire. Chapter 1254, This Emperor asks you, is that funny? However, even though they were arrogant, they weren't stupid. They knew that their numbers were small, and that it wouldn't be wise to fight head-on. Thus, they didn't stay in front of the army of the Blazing Sun Empire for too long before flying to the divine capital to report the situation. Zhou and company did not stop him. It was good that they had gone to inform them. It would be best if they could call all the powerhouses of the monster demon divine kingdom over. Only then could they kill all of them. After they left, Zhou and company did not stop. They directly piloted Cosmos Emperor and flew towards the capital of the monster demon divine kingdom. Along the way, a large number of fearless monsters saw Zhou and company coming over and rushed up to attack them from afar. In the end, they were naturally wiped out by Zhou's soldiers. As they slaughtered their way forward, they were soon not far from the monster demon divine kingdom. At this moment, the divine kingdom army of the demon god kingdom had finally appeared. More than 3 trillion troops of monster demons swept over from afar. Wherever they passed, the sky was dark. From afar, there was an aura of destruction and doomsday. It looked extremely shocking. After Zhou spread out his perception, he easily sensed the auras of more than 100 true god-tier monster demons. These monster demons have become stronger again. Collier also saw this scene and could not help but grit his teeth. Monster demons are born from the negative emotions and negative items of all living beings. And now, it's the era of lords fighting for supremacy. Because of the continuous wars, the families of the life forms of the myriad races were shattered, displaced, their relatives separated, and lives were plunged into misery and suffering. This is the best soil for nourishing the birth and strengthening of monster demons. No wonder the monster demons became so strong. With this kind of troops, they're almost catching up to an intermediate grade divine kingdom lord faction. Zhou fell into deep thought. Then, he looked at Collier and said with a smile, "Collier, your behemoth divine kingdom's defeat is not unjustified." Collier smiled bitterly. Collier. At this moment, a hoarse, high-pitched, an extremely terrifying voice resounded in the ears of the soldiers of the Blazing Sun Empire and the Behemoth Divine Kingdom. How many times have you come to our Divine Kingdom's territory? Let me think, it should be the 7th time, right? Ever since your Behemoth Divine Kingdom's bloodline advancement method failed, you have come to our Divine Kingdom's territory 6 times in a row, wanting to counterattack our Eras's Monster Demon Divine Kingdom and wash away the humiliation your Behemoth Divine Kingdom had suffered here in the past. In the end, you returned in defeat every time. TSK, what's the matter? It's rare for you to find a helper this time. Do you think you can do it? What a joke. You've already seen it, right? My Era's Monster Demon God Kingdom is already 10 times stronger than before. Not to mention finding a helper, even if you find 10 Divine Kingdom helpers, you will still be defeated by me. Moreover, you will suffer even more cruel humiliation and punishment than before. Your resistance is too weak. What's the point? The Monster Demon Divine Kingdom won't destroy your country. At most, we'll occupy your territory. Occasionally, we'll send our citizens to play in your territory for a few hundred years before leaving. Why do you have to court death? Towards the end, the Master God Tier Divine Kingdom, Eras, said in a regretful tone. Collier couldn't take it anymore. He flew out of the army and said coldly to Eras, Eras, what one want to say is the opposite of you. Today is actually the day you and your Divine Kingdom are destroyed. After Eras heard Collier's words, many monster demons, including him, were stunned. Then, they all laughed loudly. Is Collier seeing things? After seeing our army, he still dares to say such words. He must have lost his mind after being bullied by us. How could such a thing happen to a god of the Divine Kingdom? TSK. Why don't we turn him into a member of our monster demon race? This is the reserve of the best monster demon race. Once he's transformed, he'll become an emperor-level monster demon. Could it be that he is confident in his allies? I think the allies around him are only a so-so. Why waste so much time talking to him? Just go up and eat them all. I've wanted to eat the flesh of this Behemoth Divine Kingdom Lord for a long time. After Eras finished laughing, his gaze also landed on the people of foreign race beside Collier. Only then did he realize that the person who came was a human god spirit. The human race? Eras was surprised. The human race was very weak in the high continent. Even though a famous human lord, the common people's regal, had recently appeared in the human race, he had never taken him seriously because he had never interacted with him. The main reason was that he did not believe that a lord who had just risen to power would have the legendary combat strength. Just thinking about it made him feel that it was impossible. Who would have thought that the usually arrogant master god Behemoth would actually seek out the human alliance? What was Collier thinking? Collier, I didn't expect you to look for the human alliance. Why? You really can't find anyone to help you, so you randomly found someone to be your scapegoat before you die. Eras mocked. The humans beside me are not my allies. Collier said calmly, they are the soldiers of the human race's common people's regal's Blazing Sun Empire. Now that our Behemoth Divine Kingdom has become the Blazing Sun Empire's subordinate territory, everything we do is up to the common people's regal. The reason why I came here today is because Your Excellency Common People's Regal wants to help us get rid of this thorn in our side. Eras, even though you don't believe me, your doomsday has arrived. It's too late to escape. As soon as these words were spoken, Eras's side was all stunned. Did they hear it wrongly? Such a huge divine kingdom was actually willing to be a subordinate territory of a human empire? This could be said to be the first case since ancient times. Collier, I think you're probably crazy. If what you said is true, doesn't that mean that you're going to take your behemoth race and be tied to the pillar of shame in history? A dignified divine kingdom is actually a subordinate territory of a human empire. It's funny just thinking about it. Eras laughed out loud. Is that funny? At this moment, Zhou Zhou's voice suddenly resounded in the hearts of all the monster demons. At the same time, the world instantly turned dark. A bright moon rose high into the sky and shone endless moonlight on the territory of the monster god divine kingdom. It also shone on the bewildered expressions of all the monster demons. Boom! A shocking master god tier pressure erupted from the army, instantly crushing the aura of the monster demon army. Shortly after, more than 16 trillion blazing sun empire troops, more than 3 million god spirits, and more than 1,000 true god tiers appeared from space. They were high and mighty, overlooking the army of the strange demon god kingdom below. It was as if he was looking down at a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. This emperor is asking you. Is that funny? Zhou Zhou's cold voice sounded again. Araz and the monster demon army felt the pressure of the master god tier and looked at the army and god spirits that filled the sky. The smile on their faces finally froze. Chapter 1255, Activate the 10,000 Spirit Saint. Defeat the monster demon divine kingdom. Araz looked at the soldiers and god spirits that filled the sky, and his legs could not help but tremble in fear. How could there be so many soldiers and god spirits? There was also that extremely terrifying master god tier pressure. Did the other party really have the protection of a master god tier? Was it true that the legendary tier common people's regal had faced a US Scarlet Invasion army head-on and even repelled the Scarlet Invasion army? It's the king of the monster demon divine kingdom. At this moment, Zhou Zhou's voice sounded again. He had an indifferent attitude as he looked down at this true god-tier monster demon king. This emperor can give you a chance to surrender to this emperor. This way, this emperor might spare your lives and serve this emperor. How about that? The king of the monster demon divine kingdom was stunned. Then, a ferocious expression appeared on his face. A mere lord of a life form actually wants me, the king of monster demon, Araz, to submit to you? In your dreams. General Yanagaki, General Baltan. For the glory of the monster demons. Lead all the monster demons and attack them for the glory of the monster demons. Even if we die, we have to bite off a piece of the other party's flesh. The monster demon king screamed. Yes. The eyes of the two true god-tier advanced grade, Yanagaki and Baltan, were burning with anger. They led an army of more than 300 million monster demons, more than 10,000 monster god spirits, and more than 100 true gods to charge at the army of the blazing sun empire. The difference in strength between the two was like the difference between heaven and earth. It was hard to imagine how the monster demons had the courage to attack them. Zhou Zhou frowned as he watched this scene. He was very puzzled, but then, he thought of the reason for the birth and history of the monster demons and had some guesses. However, the enemy had already closed in. Zhou Zhou didn't have time to think. The moment the soldiers of both sides fought the god spirits, he raised his right hand and activated the 10,000 Spirit Saint. He didn't believe that even if the other party could resist the fear of death, could he resist his Lord Talent. Soon. Prompt, you have activated your mythical tier unique Lord Talent, 10,000 Spirit Saint. All spirits see you as a supreme saint and long to follow you. Lord Talent Notification 1. A total of 125, 632, 45, 15 extraordinary tier monsters, 325, 540, 6908 epic tier monsters, 151,330,215 legendary tier monsters, 3,156 low tier deity level monster god spirits, 1,522 mid tier deity level monsters, 501 high-tier deity-level monster god spirits, and 52 monster true god tiers have left their territory and become your loyal followers. Lord Talent Notification 2, you have obtained a spellcaster, Lamba, true god tier intermediate grade. Zhou Zhou nodded slightly. Not bad. The 10,000 spirit saint had directly incited 1,502,040,233,003 soldiers, 5,179 god spirits, and 52 true godtiers. Even though it was far inferior to yesterday's gains, Zhou Zhou was not too greedy. Then, without another word, he ordered the monster demon soldiers and god spirits who had instigated the incite defection to attack their companions with all their might. It had to be said that this order did throw the monster demon army into chaos. However, what happened next exceeded Zhou Zhou's expectations. This was because after the monster demon army experienced a short period of chaos, a portion of the monster demon soldiers and god spirits broke free from the internal enemies and fought with the soldiers of the Blazing Sun Empire again. As for the other group of monster demon soldiers and god spirits, after being injured by the infighting soldiers and god spirits, they immediately flew into a rage and began to attack all the enemies around them. This included not only the soldiers of the Blazing Sun Empire and the monster demon soldiers who were fighting among themselves, but also the monster demon soldiers who had not been incited by incite defection. Moreover, from their expressions during the battle, they seemed to be even more excited than when they were fighting against the Blazing Sun Empire's external enemies. When the other monster demon soldiers and monster god spirits saw this scene, they were not surprised at all, as if it was reasonable. Many monster demon soldiers and monster demon god spirits even took the initiative to join the internal strife and release the destruction and brutality deep in their genes. Is this a race that is born to be tyrannical and full of the desire to destroy? Zhou Zhou shook his head. They would even kill their own people when they went crazy. They really lived up to their reputation. Half an hour later, the army of the monster demon divine kingdom, which was plagued by internal and external troubles, was completely destroyed. The one who lasted until the end was the king of the behemoth divine kingdom, Eras. Common people's regal, we will meet again. Monster demons are indestructible. Eras roared viciously before he was killed by the Blazing Sun Empire. Zhou Zhou calmly watched Eras die and didn't care much about what he had said before his death. He had many enemies. Every enemy had similar thoughts, but in the end, didn't all of them die anyway? However, the monster demons are indeed indestructible unless my Lord's law reaches the level of willpower and wipes out the dark side in the hearts of all living beings. It's impossible to completely destroy the monster demons. But that's too hard. Zhou Zhou shook his head. How difficult was it to destroy the dark side in the hearts of all living beings? It could be said that any normal living being would have a dark side in their hearts. Even Zhou Zhou was no exception. If Zhou Zhou wanted to erase the dark side of all living beings, he would first have to deal with the dark side in his heart. At the thought of dealing with him, Zhou Zhou felt a little helpless. The difficulty of destroying, he, who had mastered all kinds of undying recovery methods, was no less than destroying a supreme god realm. One could imagine how difficult it was. The dark side of life forms can't be destroyed, nor can it be destroyed. Even though I don't want to admit it, darkness and light sometimes complement each other. If the darkness is eliminated, the light will become an unsolvable darkness. This darkness will only be more terrifying. Zhou Zhou muttered to himself. However, there were ways to deal with the monster demons. He could not kill the source of the birth of monster demons, but it did not stop he from restricting the birth of monster demons. As long as he forcibly restricted the birth of the monster demon and prevented it from appearing in front of life forms, even if the monster demon existed, it would be no different from extinction. Apart from that, what surprised Zhou Zhou was that he had originally thought that Eras, the god lord of the divine kingdom, would use some master god tier level trump card to counterattack. However, in the end, Eras did not use any ultimate moves, making he feel a sense of pity. He still wanted to play by himself. Clean up the entire divine kingdom's territory, collect all the divine kingdom's treasures, and bring them back to the Blazing Sun Empire. Zhou Zhou did not think too much about it and ordered. Yes. The generals obeyed. Then, he immediately went to make arrangements. This strange monster demon divine kingdom probably doesn't have many treasures. Zhou Zhou muttered to himself as he watched them leave. Chapter 1256 Divine Kingdom Token. Destructive Origin Energy. Zealous Divine Talisman. The monster demons were a destructive race. They did not care about any treasures and rarely wore weapons and equipment. They only fought with their powerful bodies and bloodline talents. With the monster demons' hatred for civilization, after they occupied the new territory, they would immediately destroy the remnants of the original forces and civilizations, including buildings, artworks, and so on. The only treasures that could be left in the monster demons' territory were the raw ores, raw materials, and other items that were not processed by any civilization. This was also the reason why many forces were unwilling to attack the monster demons. They would have meaningless sacrifices. In addition, the monster demons were not weak to begin with. After dying for a period of time, they might even revive in a stronger state. Under such circumstances, who would be willing to risk their lives to exhaust these monster demons? Therefore, unless the monster demons took the initiative to attack them, not many lords would be willing to do such a thankless task. Zhou Zhou did not think too much about it. He first summoned the corpse of the Lord of the Divine Kingdom, Eraz. Then, he calculated in his heart and quickly calculated the location of the Eraz Divine Kingdom. If Eraz was still alive, it might be very difficult for Zhou Zhou to calculate. However, after Eraz's death, most of the defensive methods that he had set up were ineffective. In addition, with Eraz's corpse as divination material, it was much easier to divinate the location of the other party's divine kingdom. Zhou Zhou looked at the sky. His gaze seemed to pass through the distance and see a yellow desert planet. Go to the divine kingdom and divine capital and wait for me. After Zhou Zhou finished speaking to the people around him, he immediately teleported and disappeared. On a yellow desert planet, Zhou Zhou's figure appeared. He looked at the desert in front of him. He raised his hand and waved. He saw a grain of sand fly out from the bottom of the desert and land in his palm. Disguise the divine kingdom world as an ordinary piece of gravel and throw it into a desert planet. I've heard of such things from bloodline inheritance in the past, but this is the first time I've seen it in reality. Zhou Zhou muttered to himself. Following that, he directly broke through the gravel's disguise with his divine sense and transformed into a 9-colored stream of light that entered. In Eraz's divine kingdom world was the scene of a desolate apocalypse. Sand filled the sky, yellow clouds covered the sun, the universe was silent, and all living beings were gone. When Zhou Zhou arrived and saw this scene, he didn't look further. After teleporting again, he arrived in front of a simple palace. This palace was made of the most solid stone and was more than 10 light-years tall. There were many tall and majestic stone chairs and all kinds of simple weapons inside. It looked like an ancient temple. The corpses of a group of monster demons and pilgrims lay scattered on the ground of the stone hall. It was as if they did not expect themselves to die so suddenly. Zhou Zhou shook his head. This was how the believers who had ascended to the divine kingdom were. As long as the God Spirit did not die, the pilgrims who believed in the God Spirit could exist forever. However, once the God they believed in died, no matter how powerful the pilgrims were, they would die with him. Currently, there doesn't seem to be a pilgrim in my divine kingdom. Zhou Zhou muttered to himself before smiling and shaking his head. He walked forward and soon arrived at the deepest part of the temple. There was a towering white jade tablet that was 1,000,000 kilometers tall. The white jade tablet emitted an extremely pure 5-colored divine light, as if it could suppress the world and suppress the universe. Zhou Zhou looked at the majestic jade tablet with anticipation in his eyes. The Divine Kingdom Jade Tablet. This is the first time I've seen it in the flesh, even though I've seen it many times in the bloodline inheritance memories. Let this emperor open you up and take the divine kingdom token inside. This way, when I establish my divine kingdom in the future, I can also use the divine kingdom token. Then, he took a look at the durability of the divine kingdom jade tablet. In the end, he discovered that the durability of this elementary divine kingdom jade steel was shockingly as high as 10 trillion. When Zhou saw this, he took a deep breath and directly activated the king. He also activated his moon demon talent to raise his power to the low-level Master God tier elementary grade. Then, he put on a full set of Master God tier divine artifacts and finally took out the regal sage Dao sword. He gathered the power of the myriad method star palm and condensed it on the blade. Rumble. The universe of the divine kingdom changed. Large black cracks appeared in the space, and pitch-black lightning roared angrily in the universe. It was Eraza's already dead divine kingdom universe that looked apocalyptic. It could not withstand the Master God tier power that Zhou had unleashed at this moment and was actually about to collapse. Slash. Zhou completely disregarded all of this. His gaze turned sharp as he raised the regal sage Dao sword and slashed it down at the divine kingdom jade tablet. Rumble. A loud bang sounded in the world. The entire true god tier middle world collapsed under the power of this sword. Zhou was extremely powerful and had the protection of a master god tier divine artifact, so he was naturally unharmed. As for this towering divine kingdom jade tablet that was 1,000,000 kilometers tall, it was actually unaffected. However, more than half of it had been slashed apart by Zhou's sword, revealing a hideous crack. Its durability had also directly increased from 10 trillion to 450 trillion. Zhou raised his eyebrows. The power contained in his sword, with the support of many Master God tier divine artifacts, was already comparable to the power of a Master God tier advanced grade. He actually didn't destroy this divine kingdom jade tablet with a single strike. As expected of the symbol of the top-notch divine kingdom. Zhou did not hesitate and slashed again. This divine kingdom jade tablet that had collapsed by more than half finally collapsed completely, turning into countless jade stones that fell into the void accompanied by a louder roar than before. Zhou picked them up and threw them into his king's treasure vault. Then, Zhou looked at the treasure on the divine kingdom jade tablet. There were a total of 5 treasures on the divine kingdom jade tablet. 3 of them were the true god tier intermediate grade regional token, the true god tier elementary grade territory, and the most important one was the true god tier elementary grade divine kingdom token. Zhou looked at the divine kingdom token. The divine kingdom token was made of 5-colored divine jade and emitted a faint 5-colored light. Treasure name, divine kingdom token, treasure grade, true god tier elementary grade, treasure effect. Those with a high-level empire can use the divine kingdom token to obtain one of the qualifications to establish a beginner divine kingdom. Treasure description, certificate to establish a supreme divine kingdom. After Zhou finished reading it, he kept it in the king's treasure box in satisfaction. Then, he looked at the other 2 items. One of the items was a grayish-black stream of air, while the other item was a blood-colored talisman. Treasure name, destructive energy, treasure grade, master god tier advanced grade, treasure effect, the first wisp of destruction energy from the chaotic era. It contains the original law of destruction. After placing it in the Kingdom Stone Tablet / Empire Golden Tablet / Divine Kingdom Jade Tablet, the Lord and his subordinates' attacks will increase the Law of Destruction's indestructible assault characteristic. Treasure description, the original substance of the Law of Destruction. It contains primitive and pure destruction energy. Treasure name, Berserk Divine Talisman, treasure grade, Master God Tier Advanced grade, treasure effect, an intrinsic divine talisman created by a Berserk Master God. After fusing with the Kingdom Stone Tablet / Empire's Golden Tablet / Divine Kingdom Jade Tablet, the Lord and his subordinates can be even more fanatical and focused in battle. There is a 100% chance of unleashing twice their normal combat power, and a 10% chance of unleashing 5 times their normal combat power. Treasure description, an intrinsic divine talisman created by a berserk master god tier. It was accidentally obtained by Eras after its death. It contains astonishing power that can double the combat power of life forms. Chapter 1257, Universal Sky Tablet. Zhou Zhou looked at these two top-notch Master God tier advanced grade treasures in surprise. Destructive Genesis Chi. Berserk Divine Talisman. I originally thought that Eras' strange demon god kingdom did not have any Master God tier treasures. So it's ale here. Furthermore, they are all top-notch treasures at the level of Master God tier advanced grade. He clicked his tongue in wonder. Two top-notch Master God tier advanced grade treasures. Even existences at the level of the 10 Master God tiers would be tempted by such treasures. Then, his gaze landed on RHE Fanatical Divine Talisman. A 100% chance of unleashing twice the combat power of a normal state. A 10% chance of unleashing 5 times the combat power of a normal state. I wonder how effective this top-notch Master God tier treasure will be when it lands on me. Zhou Zhou was deep in thought. His normal combat strength was actually only comparable to a true God tier. His strength lay in his King, Moon Demon talent, Power Heavenly Emperor's power, various Master God tier divine artifacts, Lord talent, and various other additional means. Then, he didn't think too much about it. He put it away and prepared to integrate it into his Empire's golden tablet. Then, he looked at the text notification that had just appeared. Lord of the Race event notification, congratulations, you have successfully conquered true God tier Heron and his forces. You obtained 2 million hegemony points. Lord of the Race event notification, you have been awarded 1000 Obscure Lord shop points since you conquered a beginner-level Divine Kingdom during the first stage of the Race Lord event. Announcement from Lords of all races and all channels, congratulations to Lord of the Blazing Sun, the human race, for becoming the first Lord to break through the power of a Divine Kingdom. The reward is Supreme Treasure Box +1 and Mythical Reputation Rating +10. Lord Announcement, congratulations to the human Lord of the Blazing Sun. Lord Announcement, congratulations to the human Lord of the Blazing Sun. Zhou Zhou nodded after reading it. As expected of a Divine Kingdom Lord faction. The hegemony points and Obscure Lord shop points rewarded after capturing were 10 times more than the Empire tier Lord faction. Moreover, this time, it also triggered the entire channel announcement of the Lord of all races. Zhou Zhou was not in a hurry to look at the rewards. He first opened the Lord's channel. At this moment, the Lords of the myriad races were discussing the announcement in the entire channel. Am I seeing things? The Lord of the Blazing Sun defeated a Divine Kingdom Lord faction. What Lord of the Blazing Sun? How can you call her that? Call her Your Excellency Common People's Regal. Divine Kingdom Lord faction, hee, why the fuck should one still be a lord? I can just hand over my territory token and surrender my ass. I'm still thinking about how to defeat a beginner kingdom with my allies. The Divine Kingdom Lord faction has already fallen. I'm not included in the Lord of all races version update, right? It's really ridiculous. At this rate, the Lord of all races is probably already in the other party's hands. Don't be in such a hurry to come to a conclusion. The Lord of all races competition has just begun. If we want to see if the Lord of the Blazing Sun is qualified to obtain the position of Lord of all races, we'll have to see if he can survive this Lord of the Races event. If he can survive this event, it proves that even the forces of the 10,000 races can't do anything to this Lord of the Blazing Sun. In that case, he really has the qualifications to come into contact with the position of Lord of all races. That makes sense, but I still think that the common people's regal is too powerful. To be able to defeat a Divine Kingdom Lord at this stage, it's too fucking ridiculous. Currently, there is a theory in the universe. Starting from the Lord of the Blazing Sun, the new era of the Lords of the myriad races is about to begin. The old races and factions in the past will be reshuffled in the Lord of all races competition. I didn't believe it at first, but now, I believe it a little. Now that the huge Divine Kingdom Lord factions have been destroyed, how far can it be for those top bloodline races and factions to be destroyed? Be careful with your words. After Zhou Zhou finished reading the bragging of the lords of the myriad races, he closed the myriad race lord channel in satisfaction. Then, he looked at the supreme treasure chest. He saw an ancient grey wordless stone tablet lying quietly inside after opening the treasure chest. Zhou Zhou looked at the wordless stone tablet. Gradually, mysterious words gradually appeared on it. After he finished reading, he actually felt that he had more insights into the higher-level Lord laws. This stone tablet is actually helpful for me to comprehend the Lord's law. Zhou Zhou was slightly surprised. At this moment, a text notification appeared. Treasure name, Universal Sky Tablet, Treasure Grade, Master God Tier Advanced Grade I, Treasure Effect, a treasure created by the Chaos Will. It records the endless laws of all living beings in the myriad worlds. Every God spirit level existence can see their own path of laws in the Universal Sky Tablet. Treasure description, a law cultivation treasure that records endless laws, a treasure created by the Chaos Will. The Universal Sky Tablet. So it's not just the Lord's law. All God spirits can see their own nomological path in this Universal Sky Tablet. TSK. Not bad. I can put it in the reincarnation sacred palace for all the God spirits to cultivate. Zhou Zhou took a few last glances before putting it into his king's treasure box. As for the mythical reputation rating talent represented by the 10 points of mythical reputation rating, he would probably have to wait until tomorrow. Following that, he looked around a few times and didn't find any treasures worth paying attention to before returning to the Cosmos Emperor. At the same time, Collier, Baroli, and the ministers of the Behemoth Divine Kingdom were looking at the land of the strange demon god kingdom that had been destroyed. For a moment, they were stunned speechless. Father. The Era's monster demon divine kingdom, was destroyed just like that? They are our Behemoth Divine Kingdom's greatest enemy for tens of thousands of years. Bartoli said in disbelief. Collier looked at the ruins of the Era's Divine Kingdom and did not speak for a moment. At this moment, the Time Divine Dragon, Kyoto, appeared. As soon as he appeared, he used the time reversal to restore RH ruined demon god kingdom to its original state. After that, he looked extremely relaxed as he floated away again. This scene shocked Collier and the others again. After a long time, Collier snapped back to his senses, took a deep breath, and said, "Yes, the Era's monster demon god kingdom was destroyed. And in less than half a day. This is the consequence of becoming enemies with RH common people S. Regal and the Blazing Sun Empire. Bartoli, as the subordinate territory of the Blazing Sun Empire, we must do our part and not have any thoughts of overstepping. Do you understand? Bartoli, as the subordinate territory of the Blazing Sun Empire, we must do our part and not have any thoughts of overstepping our boundaries. Do you understand? I understand. Bartoli hurriedly said. Overstepping our boundaries? How would he dare to do that? He did nor even dare to have the slightest thought of crossing the line. The powerful Era's divine kingdom was directly destroyed without even having the chance to make a splash in from of the Blazing Sun Empire. In other words, if the common people's Regal wanted to destroy the Behemoth Divine Kingdom where he was, it would only be easier than destroying the Era's monster demon god kingdom. Bartoli was extremely terrified and also extremely excited. Following such an expert and hugging the thigh of such a powerful lord meant that as long as they did not make any mistakes midway, they were destined to rise together. Maybe. Not only could they bring the behemoths back to their peak, they might even surpass their peak and reach a new height. Bartoli was trembling with excitement for such a future. I'm going to see His Excellency Regal. Collier took a deep breath and flew towards Cosmos Emperor. Chapter 1258, Zhou Zhou's intention inside the Cosmos Emperor. Zhou Zhou sat in the captain's seat and looked at the extremely respectful collier in front of him. "Why are you looking for this emperor?" he asked casually. "Your Majesty, it's about the monster demon divine kingdom." Collier said respectfully, "In the entire High Continent, there are no less than 10 divine kingdom lord factions of the monster demon race and no less than 10,000 empire-tier lord factions. As for the scattered kingdoms and lord factions below the kingdom level, there are countless of them. Ever since the monster demon king died, they had a great sense of danger and became united. His Majesty suddenly attacked this time and destroyed Eraza's monster demon divine kingdom. When the other strange demon god kingdoms and lord forces see this, they will definitely attack your Majesty. Your Majesty has to prepare early." The other monster demon divine kingdoms, Zhou Zhou pondered and said, "0, open the map of the entire High Continent." "Yes, Your Majesty." 0 obeyed. Then, a huge virtual map appeared in the air in front of Zhou Zhou. "Check for monster demon divine kingdom forces within 1,000,000 light-years around the Eraz divine kingdom and the blazing sun empire," Zhou Zhou asked. The next second, the entire virtual map was split into two. A portion of it was a map of the High Continent with the blazing sun empire as the center and a radius of 1,000,000 light-years. Another part was the map of the High Continent with the Eraz divine kingdom as the center, covering a radius of 1,000,000 light-years. There were a total of 6 blood-red spots on the two virtual maps, showing the monster demon divine kingdom lord factions nearby. There's one monster demon divine kingdom lord faction around the blazing sun empire, and 5 monster demon divine kingdom factions around the Eraz monster demon divine kingdom. Zhou Zhou raised his eyebrows in surprise. They are actually so close. The entire High Continent was very large, comparable to a super-large boundless universe. Its diameter alone was as far as 100,000 trillion light-years. This was just a very inconspicuous small portion of it. He did not expect that there were actually a total of 6 divine kingdom lord forces of the monster demons within such a small area. Something's wrong. Zhou Zhou rubbed his chin. He did not believe that such a coincidence could exist in this world. He wanted to check what the secret was, but just as he was about to take action, he hesitated for a moment and gave up. There were too many secrets in the myriad worlds. If he wanted to use the Bodhi Supreme to resolve his doubts when he encountered one, no matter how many opportunities there were, it would not be enough. Moreover, with his current strength and faction, he could fight with a high-level divine kingdom lord faction. Even if there was a secret to why the demon god kingdom was so densely distributed, it should not be able to threaten him. There was no need for him to waste a precious opportunity to resolve his doubts for something that could not threaten him. The new event has just begun. Let's use the opportunity to clear my doubts on the new event. Zhou Zhou thought. Then, he looked at the map in front of him and suddenly thought of something. He revealed a smile. "Don't worry, Collier. Even if the other strange demon god kingdoms don't look for this emperor will take the initiative to look for them. This is a rare good opponent. We can't waste it." Zhou Zhou smiled. This was because he had always been cautious. Other than the Titan god race, he had almost never had a direct conflict with any true divine kingdom lord faction. This made his situation relatively safe. At the same time, he encountered an awkward situation when he was looking for a divine kingdom lord faction to be his opponent. That was, he had almost no good reason to start a war with these divine kingdom lord factions that he had never interacted with. He spoke frankly. In fact, expanding the territory normally was a very good reason to start a war in this era. However, if he really did that, unless the target of his war was the Scarlet faction, the other divine kingdom lord factions would treat the party who took the initiative to start the war as a potential danger. If he wasn't a lord of the myriad races, even if the other divine kingdom lord factions saw him as a dangerous person, he would probably turn a blind eye to their war expansion. However, not only was he a lord of the myriad races, but he was also the strongest lord of the myriad races. Then, it was very likely that these Divine Kingdom Lord factions would use the excuse of potential danger to launch a joint attack on him. It was very likely that a large group of Divine Kingdom Lord factions would jointly attack him. Zhou didn't want to face such a terrifying attack so early, so he wouldn't expand so unscrupulously for the time being. In that case, choosing a suitable opponent was a very important matter. Now, Zhou suddenly realized that the Divine Kingdom Lord faction of the monster demons was an excellent target for war. First, due to the characteristics of their race, the monster demons were born to be the destroyer of myriad worlds, which made them extremely notorious among the 10,000 races. Except for the Abyss and other destructive forces, almost all the other 10,000 races regarded the monster demons as their enemies, which made the monster demons almost without any allies. This way, when Zhou attacked the other party, he would not have to worry that the other party would suddenly stand up and have a few allies help the other party attack him. Second, the monster demons were the enemies of the behemoth Divine Kingdom. He could completely use this as a reasonable reason to launch an invasion war against the other party. The other 10,000 races could not say anything about this. If there was really a faction of all races speaking up for the monster demons, he could accuse them of colluding with the monster demons and make them fail to steal the chickens. Instead, he would be in trouble. And from this, Zhou also thought of another target that could reasonably launch an invasion war. That was the Abyssal faction. This faction could be said to be inferior to the monster demon race on the enemy rankings of the life forms of the myriad races. He could even be considered to have occupied the first place on the enemy rankings. It was not an exaggeration to say that he was the number one enemy of the myriad worlds. Even though monster demons like to cause destruction in the myriad worlds and spread panic and destruction, they would not really destroy the world and the life forms of the myriad worlds because they needed to gain power from the negative emotions of the life forms of the myriad worlds. Unless they did not want to become stronger, they would definitely not want to destroy the myriad worlds and life forms. As for the Abyss clan, they really wanted to destroy the world and pull the myriad worlds into the Abyss, turning all the life forms of the myriad worlds into the Abyss clan. The entire myriad worlds regarded the abyssal forces as common enemies. Back then, the Holy Knight Temple of the human race had also guarded an entrance to the Abyss and fought against the invading forces of the Abyss year after year. There were countless such things in the High Continent and even the myriad worlds. It could be seen how often the abyssal forces invaded the myriad worlds. Your Majesty, are you going to take the initiative to attack the other monster demon kingdoms of the monster demon race? Collier asked in surprise. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.